Welcome to the Lineman Lounge, hosted by Mike and Evo, calling their shots and being outlandish.
Breaking news from the Lineman Lounge. My fantasy football team just took a huge fucking hit. And that also makes it even more likely that the Raiders are going to beat the Ravens on Monday night. Le'Veon Bell is about to be your starter. Latavius Murray is going to go there as well. Jesus, fuck my ass.
Get ready for the thickest podcast in the game. Coming to you from Hangar 6, where sleeves are optional. Strap in. The show starts right now.
¿Cómo están, bitches? This is the Lineman Lounge. We are back on a Saturday, and we have got a busy show. Fucking NFL draft is still going on. It's 7 rounds. It's a long fucking slog here on day 3, but there was a ton of shit that happened on Thursday and Friday night. We're going to talk about most of the things that happened in that first round, some of the highlights of what we saw in round 2 and on. But man, I'm excited to be here. It is it's been a very, very long day for me. Producer Amber and the kids are finally back with me in Ohio. So the whole family is here, but we don't have anywhere to fucking live yet. We're staying in an extended stay hotel until we can find a place to sleep, to call a home for the next 6 to 7 months while our house is being built. So it has been an absolutely exhausting day. Evo, how you doing, man? Tell me about your day.
I'm fucking tired. I'm tired. So I'm on this night shift, and I'm used to going to bed around 1, 2 in the morning, sometimes later. But I got up this morning at just before 6 a.m. because I had a little golf tournament. The regiment was throwing a golf tournament today, so a little 2-person scramble. So me and Kayla Hubbard went out, and Kayla Hubbard and I went out and competed, and we played pretty shit. Shit.
That'll happen.
We got, I believe, like 11th place. So not too.
But out of how many teams?
14, maybe.
Not last. You're not last.
Not last. That's never what you want to shoot for, though. I played atrocious. Kayla played great. Really carried the team. But yeah, my drive was just off. I am sitting here now waiting. When we're done with this, I'm going to ice my back up because my back is not feeling well. And it was just, golf is golf. It's always fun. It's always a good time. But
absolutely.
It sucks to play that bad. We shot an 81. 72 was par. No birdies, a lot of pars, only one double. But it was, I love golfing. I'll take a bad day of golf any day. But it was surprising though. The winning team only shot a 69. Awesome number.
Not that so typically when you're talking about a scramble, you're gonna get some really fucking low scores, and they're barely shooting under par. Yeah,
the front running grouping, the Denman brothers, who always play very well, they shot par today. So that was surprising. That's, for the top team to only shoot 3 under on a relatively easy course. It was surprising. I got a comment here from David Wyman. Let's go Lyman Lounge. So that's David Wyman. He played today. He's actually streaming right now on Twitch. $20 is $20. Go check him out. Give him a shout out for us.
Check him out after you listen to us, though.
Or dual screens.
Or
dual
both.
Screen.
If you can get both at the same time, if you could get fucking $20 is $20 and the Lyman Lounge and a fucking little thick sandwich, oh man, you'd be in heaven right now.
Oh yeah. To support his stream, I've been watching pretty much every time that he goes live. I've got the notifications working on my phone to pop up, and he's actually been promoting us a lot on there too, which has been really nice.
Awesome.
But yeah, Dave played today, him and Rich Harris, and they thought they came in with the worst score. I believe they were second worst because someone didn't turn in a scorecard, so they got 100 plus.
Hell yeah.
But they shot under 100, the two of them, so that's pretty good for relatively novice golfers. But yeah, it was it was a rough slog fest of the day. And like I said, I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm dehydrated.
Yeah.
You
said you didn't even drink though, right?
I didn't even drink today. I didn't even
Whew.
drink. No, there was no birdie juice in me, and that's probably one of the issues.
That is probably one of the reasons that you didn't perform at your best.
Yeah. But so gonna, knock out this pod here, do a little bit of resting, and then I've got to finish up this college class I'm in, this Christian worldview class, which has just been atrocious.
Sounds tough.
Not to get too into the religious spectrum, but Dave is also taking this class. He's not in the same one as me, but he's on the same timeline as me in the class. So this is his last couple days in it. And Dave is a fairly religious man, and he is also all on board for this being one of the worst classes ever, because it is not Christian worldview, as the class is called. It is Christian indoctrination. It's pretty disgusting. A lot of people in the message boards in the class, who there's some of them that are going, like, trying to get degrees to become reverends or pastors and stuff like that. And they're like, okay, what is this class? They're like, this is not Christian worldview. The general overall sense from the class has been generally sickening, because it's indoctrination. It reminds me too close to some of the terrorists that we fought overseas. Indoctrination for that. Early indoctrination. Because it's like, what did Jesus do here? And did he do here? And how did he affect your life? And if you give anything other than like an extremely devout answer, they're like, you're wrong. Here's points off. If you want to pass this class, you need to switch your thought process. It's not going over the Christian worldview. It is going over how can we make you believe in Christianity more.
Here's Christian worldview, and then we're going to pump our view into the Christian worldview.
Yeah, it is. There is no opposing worldviews. There is only one worldview, and it is the Christian worldview. Yeah, I guess that's what I get for going to a Christian college, though.
Right. So my first college, when I got my football scholarship, I should have known I was not going to succeed. I went to a Catholic liberal arts school. I am neither Catholic, maybe a little bit more on the liberal side than a lot of the people that we know, but those are not necessarily like my lanes. And that was tough. It was very, very tough.
There you go. Go Lopes from Rigby.
Go Lopes.
Yeah, he's the one that got me into that college.
GCU.
Yeah. Hey, it's everything up to this point has been great with this college. This class, and I highly doubt that my professor has any way of knowing that I do this, podcast or anything. But man, that professor's rough, because he just contradicts himself constantly. Be like, hey, you did a great job on this. However, I'm knocking you down in points because you didn't do a good job. It's like, what? You just said that I did great. But
so did I do good or did I not do good?
Yeah, it's very, very contradictory. And also when they knock points, they give you a very, very, very generalized response to it, like, do better on this, but it doesn't say what you exactly did wrong, so I can't even pinpoint things. And I've ran by, like, the essay that we did, I've ran it by a friend who's an English major and teaches at college, and they're like, there's no problem that I can see with what they docked you on,
other than what you said in it, the
opposing viewpoints. Yeah. So it is what it is. I'm hanging on to my 4.0 right now, barely in this class. It is an A- right now, so I need to finish out these next 2 days strong.
Well, college is always tough, man. Like, I'm thinking about going back to school, thinking about becoming a Viking, going to Cleveland State.
Opinion base.
Yeah. But that's always tough. It always is worrisome. But speaking of grades, we're gonna probably give out a couple of grades today based on some of the shit that happened over the last couple of days with the draft. So, I mean, I got nothing else to talk about. I'm excited to be here. I'm very happy to be doing the show. I need a break from looking at fucking houses and trying to find a place to sleep. I'm actually going to continue once I got to go back to work on Monday. I got to be there at 5:30 in the morning. And so I'm going to sleep at Byron's house still, because there's no way sleeping all of those kids and me and Amber in a room, because the kids are fucking terrorists and will not go to bed. So I'm going to try to pass out here still until we move into an apartment. But yeah, I'm super pumped. You got anything else before we start diving into these picks?
No, man, I'm ready to jump into the draft. So, kind of the format that we're going to go with today is, the draft is actually still ongoing. It is in the seventh round. It is going to close here shortly, and we're not going to go over every single pick. We are definitely going to focus on the first round. We'll get a little bit into the second round. We're going to focus on our teams, some of the trades and things like that have happened primarily in the first round, and give grades for our teams or overall feelings of how our teams did, how other teams in our divisions did, and so on and so forth. So with that, we can start off. First round pick, number one overall. You predicted this correct in your final mock that posted up right before the draft went, which
I did.
A lot of the draft pundits in their final mocks started to put this in there. Trayvon Walker, defensive end from Georgia, goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, so I wasn't sold that this was going to happen, but I just start seeing so many people mock it as like, man, maybe there's got to be some traction here if this is constantly being talked about. And I mean, so don't get me wrong, Trayvon Walker's an absolute fucking stud. I think it was a little bit, heat of the moment that the Jags went with this pick. He absolutely blew up at the combine. This guy was super productive. Helped lead that Georgia defense to a national championship. He's going to be uber productive. I wasn't sure it was going to happen, but I mean, it's hard to argue between him and the guy that went second, and it's pretty close to a toss-up. I thought Hutchinson might end up being the better pro, but if you look at it, if you turn on the tape, Travon Walker is an absolute physical fucking freak. And that's why he started flying up draft boards, where at one point this guy was talked about as a second-round pick.
Yeah. So I think Travon Walker is the higher ceiling between the two, him and Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson is a much safer pick. You're probably going to get stellar production out of Hutchinson as well. But if Travon Walker hits his ceiling, he could be extremely, extremely good. I'm not 100% sold that he will hit that ceiling. I think that he'll still be a very good player. It's a tougher position to get, or a tougher situation to gamble on if you don't know for sure if he's going to hit that ceiling when you're taking the number one overall pick. And if this had been any other draft where you have quarterbacks that are worthwhile of the first overall pick, Jaguars would have absolutely looked to trade out of that spot.
Yeah,
because and this is just, it has been a very, very weird draft. This is the first draft that I can remember that is like this, where you have a lot of first round talent, but no one that is necessarily like lights out, stand out. Like you got to go get them up in
There's
the top.
There's not a generational talent in this draft.
Yeah. And so because of that, the trades were a little bit weirder in some instances. Some of the selections are a little bit weirder. And that, leaves us with, this first overall pick where I'm not as sold as I was in previous years for other players that like, this is a knock out of the park, home run type of hit on a player. I like Travon Walker. I do. I like most of those guys on that Georgia defense, foreshadowing when I got one on my team now. So,
yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see how this career turns out. I mean, that's going to be the next couple years. Is this a comparison of Aiden Hunderson and Travon Walker, and who's the better out of the two of them? Because those were the two main guys that the Jags were looking at.
Yeah. So that takes us right into the second pick. And as soon as Travon Walker was picked by the Jags, the Lions were sprinting to the fucking podium. I don't think I've ever seen a second pick go that fast. It maybe took 45 seconds.
Yeah, it was very quick for the Lions to get that Aiden Hutchinson pick in, keeping him in state. And I mean, it was a no-brainer to me at that point.
For sure. There was nowhere else to go but there.
We were texting back and forth, and it's like, man, that pick went in quick, and we know exactly who it is. There was no doubt. So good get for the Lions. They needed help with their pass rush for sure.
They need help everywhere, but this is great. This is a guy that I thought was gonna go number one, probably the best player in this draft, in my opinion. We'll see how. Obviously, we don't know. It's a fucking crapshoot. That everybody in the draft is the flip of a coin for the most part. But this is a perfect Dan Campbell guy.
He's going to be a motivational leader on that defense. And like it seems like a match made in heaven between him and Dan Campbell. Like they both are going to have that hard-nosed motivator mentality and get everyone on board. The Lions did a very good job in this draft so far. I think that, especially at the top end, I think they did a very good job. And so we have another question here from Rigby, Jonathan. Do you think the NFL has good quarterbacks and that's why quarterbacks were not selected? I think the NFL does have good quarterbacks, but I don't think that's why they weren't selected. I think, like it's been talked about, this is a historically bad quarterback draft, and teams selected that way. The guys that we were expecting to possibly go here in the first didn't. The only one went in the first. So,
and not the one I expected.
Absolutely. That was a surprise to me. And we'll definitely go through where all of those top, 5+ quarterbacks went in this draft so far.
The best quarterback in this draft is Baker Mayfield, who you could probably get for a 7th round pick at this point.
I don't know if I'm willing to go that far yet. I'm a little off on Baker. And that's probably some recency bias. That's probably some recency bias, but it's a lot to do with some of the baggage that he's carrying with him. And this has been a lot more, we had talks at work on Friday and stuff about this again with Baker and people being like, "Whoa, he hasn't gone here on Friday. Like he hasn't been traded." I was like, I don't think they're going to trade him. I think that the Browns are going to sit pat with Baker. They're going to wait to see what happens with Deshaun Watson and the suspensions. And then they're going to tell Baker, like, hey, we wanted you to be our starting quarterback unless we were able to get a guy like Deshaun Watson.
Top tier guy.
And this is a business, and we were able to get Deshaun Watson. We think that he, gives us the best chance to win. Not that we think you're bad, just that like he's could be a top 5 quarterback in the league. And you're not at that point right now. And that sucks to hear, but it is a business. And if they tell him like, hey, we know he's going to price it out, come out here, ball for us, and someone is going to want to trade for you. And that's what I think is going to happen. Like inevitably,
and he can get himself another new contract.
Yeah, inevitably, you are going to have a quarterback go down between now and week 6, we'll say. I would say.
I would put money on who that quarterback is going to be, too.
Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz is going to blow both of his knees out playing over for the Commanders at that awful field.
It's a strong possibility. But
Carson is made of glass as it is, and that field is notorious for just snatching knees. Yeah.
So I truly believe that Baker can revitalize his career, and it's going to be in his hands. That he will be able to start this season for the Browns, who are a very good team. I still think that they are a playoff capable team.
I agree, we're playoff capable, but he's not going to be here. That relationship, in my opinion, as a Browns fan, is entirely too fractured. They would rather roll in with a Josh Dobbs or a Brissett over a Baker. I don't think there's any way to repair that. It's just, in my opinion, we're just holding out to see if anybody will give us anything, a 7th round pick in 2023 or something like that, or for somebody to go down in training camp and then to make a trade there.
And that's
I don't think there's any way that it could happen where he comes back and plays for the Browns again.
I would like to think that if the Browns are smart and he's smart, they are able to mend the relationship enough for him to put something on tape out there to get some more trade value out of him. But in general, I do agree. Like, it is a very fractured relationship. It's a very tough situation.
This is going to take some sort of alpha male in a dominant leadership position to admit that they were wrong, whether that be Baker Mayfield or the Cleveland Browns front office. And both of us being former military, we know that doesn't fucking happen. Those A-type personalities are not going to be like, you know what? I was wrong.
Typically, those people lean into their position, yeah. But again, we'll go over the quarterbacks that have been taken in this draft, and most of the teams that had quarterback needs took a guy, and other than the Seahawks, I believe.
Yeah, the Seahawks still have not. So, I mean, there's still hope for
that
trade.
To me, that's the only possibility, barring injury. as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, because the Panthers did make a move. We'll talk about that after a little bit. There was some, I mean, I was Bailey Zappi. I was pretty excited for the kid. Went to a situation I think is very weird, but also good for him. We'll get to that one once we get to that point.
Yeah,
Right,
we'll jump back into the draft.
Let's get on to the third pick. Yeah. So this is something that you have been kind of calling out for a little bit.
Derek Stingley is the number one defensive back to go off the board here. After his pro day, I was like, I don't see him getting past pick 8 at this point anymore. And he could go higher. I'm surprised that he went above Sauce. That's for sure.
Me too.
Because I think Sauce is a safer pick at this point, and I think Stingley has a higher ceiling. So just like Travon Walker has a higher ceiling, so that kind of pushed him higher. Stingley has a higher ceiling, and his pro day just kind of solidified that. So the Texans go out, they get Derek Stingley. You've got Lovie Smith in there as the head coach now. He's a defensive-minded guy, and so that they went that route and brought in Derek Stingley. So again, I'm surprised that he went above Sauce, but I don't think it's a bad pick by any means. They need to fix their defense, and by all intents and purposes, he's a very solid player and should be a lockdown corner for them going forward.
Yeah, so after his pro day, kind of showed that injuries are not a concern anymore. He is fast. This is a kid after his freshman year. Everybody thought that at some point this kid was going to be the best corner in the country. Had never lived up to that, that hype after that freshman year. But he kind of started to quiet some of those questions about him and goes to the Texans. I mean, Texans, I think, are going to get a really good player. I don't think he's better than the guy he went in front of with the very next pick. But, I mean, I have no complaints about Stingley. I am surprised that he went as high as he did. But, I mean, if he can live up to that massive potential that everybody's been talking about since that freshman year at LSU, kid's going to be fucking amazing. So
Yeah. And then right after that, the Jets are up and they take Sauce Gardner. Yeah. So I think that they would have been happy to have Stingley as well because cornerback is definitely a need for them. So we had mocked, wide receiver to them here at pick 4 for the Jets. But as it turns out, they're able to get the wide receiver that we were thinking about a little bit later on. So taking Sauce Gardner here seems like an absolute steal for them because they're able to make great use of both of those 2 high picks. We've talked ad nauseum about Sauce Gardner. Love him as a prospect. Think he's going to be phenomenal. And for what it's worth, I mean, the Jets actually did pretty well in this draft.
I was going to say the biggest shock of this entire draft to me is how well the Jets have fucking drafted. Like they have done a really good job.
I wouldn't say it's the biggest surprise for me. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Okay.
But they've done very well. I thought with some change in the front office, they would do a better job. And so far they have. I mean, I'm not one to pump up the Jets ever. But everybody has done a really good job in that war room of putting together this board and drafting guys that are going to be productive. And I think probably starters for this team, at least for their first, 3, maybe even first 4 picks that they made. So they look really good in this draft right now. We like bashing on the Jets a lot. And I did that on draft night, with posting up those pictures and had a little crying Jordan there for Sauce Gardner. But, call a circle. The Jets have had a good offseason. They've attempted to bring in players. Like they went after Tariq. I'm surprised that, they might still be in on Debo. I don't know. Because were rumors swirling around about them making a Godfather-style trade offer that can't be refused for Debo. It might have changed up a little bit here with the draft because, no one's got picks to trade anymore for Debo, and he might just be stuck there. But they had a good offseason. They had a relatively good draft last year, barring,
Except
the
quarterback,
which, I know you have your thoughts on him, and he had a bad year last year. This year will probably by midseason will really tell me how I feel completely about him. But this draft,
they have so many weapons for this kid now that
Joe Douglas has done a phenomenal job there in the front office for the Jets, and they got a good head coach in Robert Saleh. So things are definitely trending up for the Jets. I don't know if they're playoff bound, but it's definitely looking up for the Jets.
Yep. All right. So let's move on to pick 5.
Yep.
And a guy that was kind of projected at the start of the year to be number 1 pick. This guy, I think, probably has the highest ceiling of anybody in this draft. This depends on how motivated he is when he gets there. Supremely physically talented, and Kevon Thibodeaux. I mean, the kid was a stud in college. He had a little bit of a step back this year. I think some injuries hurt him a little bit throughout the season. But Giants, New York is doing a great job in this draft. I love this pick right here. I don't think it's too high. I thought we could have seen 3 DNs go 1, 2, and 3 with Kevon going 3 there. So this is a good pick by the Giants.
Yeah, absolutely. So New York Giants pick up Kevon Thibodeaux again, like you said, coming into the year was expected to be the number 1 overall pick, or early consensus number 1 overall pick. And then, like you said, he did have injuries and stuff like that. And then there were some of the rumors about, was he completely motivated or not? I'm actually not worried about that. There's been other, pro players and stuff that have known him for a while. They're like, these rumors, we don't know where they're coming from. The guy is very, very motivated. I think the sky's the limit for him, because some of the stuff that I heard in the days leading up to the draft about Kevon Thibodeaux specifically was he produced there in spite of the coaching and the team around him. That the coaching there, not to knock on Oregon's coaching, but wasn't the best top-notch type of defensive line coaching that he could have. If he was somewhere else, like a Georgia or an Alabama,
Ohio State,
that you're going to see way more production out of this guy than we saw, and he definitely produced in college. So him going to the Giants, they have my former defensive line coach there, who I fucking absolutely love. He's going to do wonders with Kevon Thibodeaux. I think Kevon Thibodeaux could be the best defensive end out of this draft when all things are said and done. When we check back in 2, 3, 5 years, Kevon Thibodeaux could absolutely be a stud and the steal of this draft here at pick 5. People will be questioning, why wasn't he taken number 1 overall?
All right. So go ahead, man. I'll let you talk about this one.
Sure. So next pick 6, Carolina Panthers. They stick with their pick there. And, there's been a lot of talks of, coaches on the hot seat, got to go after quarterback, something like that. Malik Willis has now fallen to pick 6. And they don't go with a skill position. They actually go with Ikem Ekwonu, Icky, getting their offensive lineman, tackle, guard. He's more talked about as a tackle. We both think that he's a better guard than a tackle, but they need offensive line help. He's probably going to be stuck in there immediately as a tackle. And he's very, very talented. So it is an interesting pick by the Panthers here to go after a non-skill position guy. This is what's best for the team long-term is to go after Icky. If it's going to help Matt Rule or their front office there, I'm not sure, because, they don't really have a good quarterback situation. They did go out and get one a little bit later on in the draft, but which having Icky there will help, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't have any complaints with this pick. I think it's the right pick for the team long term. But it is interesting to see that they didn't go after one of those skill positions. They didn't reach for someone. But overall, I like the pick. I
like the pick as well. I don't like Icky as a tackle. We've talked about it. I think he's a guard, but he's a very good offensive line. This team is going to be in full-on rebuild. Matt Rule's getting fired. They're not worried about resetting Matt Rule's clock and going out and trying to find him a quarterback who he can try to win with. It's not happening. Matt Rule's going to get fired unless he has a miraculous season here with Sam Darnold leading the way, which I think he will probably be the starter to start the season. They did not make the trade for Baker, even though it was reported basically every day of the draft that they were still having those conversations going on. That did not happen. So this is great to build your team. Your team is about to be in a full-on rebuild. That team is going to get blown up. They're not going to have Christian McCaffrey there for probably past this year. The contract's too big. Running back, he's oft injured. I mean, let's go ahead and get some assets, get guys in there. Let's build from the trenches, and let's, get ready for that reset and try to build a winner. So I like the pick.
Yep. Next, we go back to the Giants, and they stick in the trenches, and they go out and get who is considered possibly the best tackle in the draft in Evan Neal, who is a true tackle, big boy from Alabama. So I like the way they're moving. They're sticking to the trenches. They get Kevon Thibodeaux on defense, who's going to be a stud. And then they go out and they get themselves a stud tackle in Evan Neal. So solid pick for them. I always like building from the trenches first because you've got a quarterback situation there with Danny Dimes that isn't great. Yep. And I believe that the front office, their new front office, and their new head coach understand this. And so they're going to not reach in this draft. They're making the smart decision.
Exactly.
Long term, build through the trenches, have a nice, fertile foundation for someone next year to start building this team up.
And that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because they're building in the trenches, and it's brilliant. Evan Neal is a tackle. Now, he has position versatility. I think he played 4 different spots for Alabama throughout his time there. So this guy can move inside if you need him to, but he is a true tackle. I think he probably projects best as a right tackle, could potentially be a really good left tackle, but he'll need some seasoning. It's just this team did not pick – they reported during the draft they did not pick up the 5th-year option on Danny Dimes, which means this is Danny Dimes' last year on the contract. He is not going to be picked up again. They're going to continue to build the team up front, build a good defensive line so they can do the same thing that the Panthers are thinking about doing and getting ready for next year in what looks to be like a possibly loaded quarterback class and go out, reset, and then try to build a winner. This is really good team building, in my opinion. Giants did a great job. Again, it's another surprise to me because the Giants and the Jets typically fuck these things up.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I've really enjoyed the Giants offseason. I thought that their head coach selection and their GM selection were very good. And then they went out and made some moves that are not splashy for this year, but they are setting that foundation for years forward. So, maybe they're able to get something out of Danny Dimes. Obviously their head coach was able to do good stuff with Josh Allen, and they have some similar skill sets. Danny Dimes is not good under pressure. His accuracy wavers. But if, by not going after this 5th-year option on Daniel Jones, they're able to say, like, hey, we're willing to move on from you next year. If you play good this year, they could offer him a backup level contract to be a bridge. And I think that will probably be his market, next year at best. So they're setting themselves up for success and giving themselves options going forward.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So on to the next one. And this, I'm super excited to talk about this fucking pick because we both lost our minds when it happened. Pick number 8, the Atlanta Falcons go out and they make a big splash play. They get a receiver. And obviously you're taking the first receiver in the draft. You're going to go out. You're going to pick the best receiver on the board. And they take Garrett Wilson. Not just fucking kidding. They decided to go after after a kid that I'm not super high on. Is coming off of a knee injury.
He's fringe top 5 for me. There's question marks. Drake London from USC.
I had him as a second rounder, end of the first, beginning of the second round guy. And Drake London. I mean, he is a big, tall guy. We're comparing him to Vincent Jackson during the draft, and I do not see that at all. I mean, I get it. He was a basketball player. He has some of those abilities, those box out abilities, leaping abilities, and he's a big guy. But he's not the 6'5" that he was listed at USC. He is 6'3.5". That is a big difference. He was unable to do the testing during the combine because he was injured, coming off of the knee injury. We don't know how fast this kid, you said in the text thread that maybe they're hoping that this kid is a Mike Evans. He's not a Mike Evans. I mean, I did not understand this pick. I thought they would go receiver, but this is not where I thought they would go with receiver.
Yeah, it's surprising me. Like I said, I see the potential there, but I'm not sold on him. And if I'm not sold on him, I'm not taking him as the top wide receiver in the draft. There's question marks still for sure. He didn't separate in college. He didn't separate. He's using his size to catch passes.
Contested catches against guys who are less athletic than the guys he'll face in the NFL.
Yeah, and name the last good USC wide receiver that you can think of that in the pros.
Not good, but halfway productive. What was that? Roy Williams, Mike Williams, I don't even fucking remember.
Mike Williams, he played some and
not good. I mean, had a couple of productive seasons, but
but he was a first round pick. There's not these high pick USC, and it doesn't really matter what school you went to. If you're productive, you're productive. If you're good, you're good. But and there's coaching regime changes and stuff there at USC, so it shouldn't matter. But at the end of the day, like I'm looking at a list right now of the top wide receivers to come out of USC, and we're taking a trip down memory lane to find any of the good ones. We've got Johnny Morton, old Chiefs receiver, Keyshawn Johnson. It's been a while since he's played.
Yeah.
Lynn Swan.
Lynn was a stud.
Yeah, Curtis Conway.
This is the 70s we're talking about, though.
It's a while ago, right? So you're not getting great receiving talent coming out of there. It's guys that produced in college and then just never made it in the NFL. And that's my fear for Drake Jackson, is that he's going to be thought of as possibly London. Is that who? Yeah, Drake London.
Drake Jackson is the D end from USC.
Yeah. Well, I'm also going to mix up because people are also comparing him to Vincent Jackson, possibly. Yeah. You're hearing Mike Evans, Vincent Jackson. I believe I even heard an Ed McCaffrey, which is the bigger body possession receivers, not necessarily great at separation. They're just going to win some contested battles. Yeah. If he's able to reach either or any of those three guys' output, this is a success. But I don't know that's going to happen. And right now you've got Mariota there, and then you've got a rookie quarterback that drafted this year. I don't think they're bad options, but they aren't the guys that you think are going to immediately create a passing offense that's going to be scary. A lot of people are really boosting up the Falcons for this pick. I'm not one of them. If you're going receiver, there's better options out there. Yeah,
there was like 4 at least better options, and a lot of them went shortly after this pick.
Yeah, well, that's the funny thing, though, is that, we saw a crazy wide receiver run here in the first round. Guys that we were expecting to be fringe first round or at least second round picks were going in the first round, much higher in the first round than we were expecting. It's very interesting because this is a loaded wide receiver draft. So you're kind of thinking, like, we can see these guys get sprinkled throughout the draft. Mm-hmm. But it was very top heavy.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it was. It was wild. All right, I'm not going to keep burying Drake London. All right, on to number 9, though. And I love this pick for the Seahawks. They go with Charles Cross, tackle.
Another spot that I thought Malik Willis could have gone.
Could have gone here as well. Did not. But I think this is a really smart pick by the Seahawks. This is the smart thing to do because – their offensive line has been really bad for a really long fucking time up in Seattle. They were getting Russ killed up there. So now, they don't have a quarterback, but they at least have, a guy who can protect whoever you eventually bring in there. This is smart team building. We talked about it with the Jets. We talked about it with the Giants. Start building your offensive and defensive lines and, that's how the Seahawks got really good to begin with. And then they found Russ in the 3rd round. Like, this is good team building. I love this pick.
And an elite defense, yeah. That's, like I said, building through the trenches, build your foundation. I don't think that the team is going to be very good this year. The Seahawks are going to be rough for a couple years. But Charles Cross is a set it and forget it, non-flashy pick. See him for the next decade out there. Going to be very solid. I've got no issues with Charles Cross as a player or going to this team at all. It's a smart foundational pick for, the next decade. So that like I said, it was one of those places that we thought you could see a quarterback go, but they, the way that the draft fell and the way that scouting departments obviously viewed the quarterbacks, they made the smart choice for their future in going out and getting Charles Cross.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. And then next up, we got the Jets, the Jets coming back. And like we alluded to, they got one of those wide receivers that we thought could have gone to them as early as pick 4 in Garrett Wilson. And so if you flip-flop those picks, Sauce Gardner would not have been there.
Nope.
Stingley obviously wasn't going to be there because he got picked at pick 3. So they wouldn't have had the option of getting one of those top 2 cornerbacks. So taking them with their first pick was smart. And then they're still able to get arguably the best wide receiver in the draft in Garrett Wilson. So now you got that Wilson to Wilson connection out there in the Meadowlands.
Well, Zach better do his fucking job because Garrett Wilson's a stud. So I watched Garrett Wilson play a lot. I'm a huge Ohio State fan. But like the clips that they are showing during the draft, the kid is unbelievable. Now, he's not that big, right? He's 5'10-ish, 5'10 and a half, but he makes plays way bigger than his height. He has a massive wingspan, has outrageous leaping ability, contorts his body well to the ball. He is an absolute stud, and this is fantastic for the Jets if they can find a guy to throw him the fucking ball.
Maybe Zach Wilson becomes that guy.
Maybe Zach Wilson becomes that guy and makes me eat my words. I mean, I hope Garrett Wilson has a great, great career. I just think he'll be in New York for 5 years, and then he'll be moving on unless the Jets eventually find a quarterback, because I don't think they got their guy right now.
They need to figure it out within the first 3 years, and we're already a third of the way through that. Otherwise, they're going to be wasting all of these other smart decisions that they're making.
Yeah,
they've done a really good job. I think Joe Douglas would be willing to eat crow and be like, "Yeah, this ain't working. Let's move on." But we'll see. Good pick there by the Jets. It'll just be interesting to see if that talent can actually be used. And then, so next pick, we have a trade. So it was originally the Washington Commanders pick. The Saints move up. Saints trade their first round, 16th overall pick, a third round number 98, and a fourth round number 120 to move up to 11. And they're going up there for a receiver, and they're going after. And this is someone that we actually had mocked to him just later on.
Just later on, not making the trade up for him.
Yep, and it's Chris Olave. So 2 Ohio State receivers go back to back there. I like Olave a lot, and I don't know that I would have moved up to 11 for him because I think that he possibly could have still been available. Or
I don't know, man. The way the receivers started flying off the boards.
Yeah, the way the receivers started going, he probably would not have been available at their next pick there at 16. But that was my initial gut reaction. Was like, I don't know if I would have jumped up this far for him. But overall, they get Chris Olave. That helps their receiving room because they don't know what the hell is going to happen with Michael Thomas.
Michael Thomas was very excited. He tweeted out that, let's go ahead and let's run this shit, Buckeyes South. And, I think it's going to be good for Michael Thomas to have another guy he knows from Ohio State down there. Hopefully that will keep him, a little happier. It will take some of the pressure off of him when he comes back. Chris Olave is an absolute stud. This is a guy that I thought was coming out last year, and I thought would have been the number 1 receiver coming out last year. Yeah. And then, probably second behind Jamar Chase.
Yeah. It would have been a tight race between those two, and I think Jamar Chase's size would have put him as the number 1.
Yeah. Well, Olave is a stud. This is a great pick.
If you want to keep Michael Thomas down there in the Bayou, bring in an Ohio State guy, someone that he's excited about. Obviously, he's excited about this pick. So, for all intents and purposes, good pick by the Saints. We'll see if Jameson or if Winston can.
Jameis Winston, you were getting ahead of yourself for the next pick.
Yeah, because next pick, my Minnesota Vikings, I mocked them at pick 12, taking Jameson Williams, and guess who goes at pick 12? Jameson Williams. Not to my Vikings. We traded in division with the Detroit Lions, who had the 32nd overall pick, which we did pick up. A little bit interesting trading within the division. I wasn't super stoked about that, but I can get by it. The problem is that the meat of this draft really is in rounds like 2 through 5. So I was okay with us moving back and picking up, some more picks. But as far as the trade value charts go, we lost in this trade. We lost by about 250 points, which equates to a third-round pick. And we, weren't going to get another third-round pick because in this trade we got 32 overall, 34 overall, so the second pick in the second round, and
which is a very valuable pick.
36. Yep. We traded away one of our 2 second-round picks and that number 1 overall. Realistically, we should have gotten a third next year along with this to make the trade work. But I'm not stressing over it or anything like that because, like I said, the trade values in this draft in particular with the talent are a little wonky. But either way, beyond that, just focusing on the pick of Jameson Williams going to Detroit. Awesome for Detroit.
I agree.
Because they go and they get arguably one of the top defensive players in the draft in Aiden Hunderson, and then they go out and get who was considered the best wide receiver in the draft prior to his injury in Jameson Williams. And again, the reports on Jameson Williams is that he will be ready to go by training camp. So if this injury does not hold him back, if it doesn't, I think that he will play this year, and I don't think
he will as well.
I don't talk about the injury holding him back there. It's just ACL injuries. Players usually are able to come back from those and be the same or better. But you just never know completely. Maybe he is not ever going to be the same Jameson Williams that we saw there at Alabama. But if he hits that potential, they just got a stud, a awesome wide receiver, the best wide receiver that they've had since Calvin Johnson.
Yeah.
So,
and this gives St. Brown somebody opposite of him when he gets healthy. So St. Brown's not going to have to be the number 1 guy when he's number 2.
Yeah, and they had already made some offseason signings to bring in other receiving help. So they are going to have at least a good 3 wide receiver set there.
And I like the fact that they don't reach for a quarterback. Jared Goff is not a world beater. Jared Goff has been to a Super Bowl, but if they want to reevaluate the quarterback position, this is not the year to do it. You do that next year. You build some talent. That way you can bring a guy in. This is another really good pick by the Lions. I'm excited for Lions fans. I want the Lions to have a decent little run. I know you don't. They're in your division. But, Lions fans
I would like to see them do well. I don't want to see them do well against the Vikings, and I don't want to see them win the North. But I'm all for the Vikings, absolutely destroying the Motor City Kitties every time we see them. But other than that, the Lions can go and win out or whatever. You just let us have the North. That has been a much maligned team, and especially for Dan Campbell, I just want to see that team do well.
I do too, man. Great pick for them. If I'm the Lions, I'm not letting him rush himself back to be ready by training camp. If he is ready, fine, but I'm not rushing him into action at all.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. All right. Then next pick 13, we have another trade. So the Eagles move up with the Texans. All right. Eagles get 13th overall pick. Texans get number 15th pick, and then a 4 and 2 5s to go along with that. So a bunch of late round picks to move up, and
Texans need a ton of guys, though. It makes sense for the Texans.
Yeah, and realistically, they're moving up 2 spots and giving up 3 extra picks for it in the late rounds. So not crazy. And the Eagles are able to jump ahead of the Ravens and get a guy that the Ravens probably were going to take in Jordan Davis. And Jordan Davis, through the scouting process and everything, he's an exciting player to watch just because, he put up those insane measurables at the scouting combine. And I think he's a great fit for the Eagles. I was sitting next to Goose, the Eagles Shithawks reporter, at Native Wings, and he was like, please, Jordan Davis. And then when it came by, he's like, all right, fuck, we made a good pick. And that's why I'm going to say I think the Eagles are actually drafted very well so far. And Howie Roseman kind of doing a 180, at least on his draft. Yeah. We'll see how it turns out. That was the biggest surprise for me is Howie Roseman didn't completely step on his crank through this draft.
Yeah, no, he's done a really good job. Blind squirrels find nuts, man. This is a great pick for them. Fletcher Cox, they re-signed him on a 1-year deal. So, he's going to be there, but I think you can probably play Jordan Davis right next to Fletcher Cox and let him learn from a absolute stud veteran guy for a year. Fletcher is probably about to be retiring. So this is a fantastic pickup for the Eagles.
And Jordan Davis is going to be your traditional, first two down type of interior lineman.
Yep.
But the athleticism that he showed, he could technically get out there on passing downs. You just got to almost put him on a snap count to not wear him out because he's a big fucking boy.
Yeah, he's a goddamn refrigerator running a 4.8.
Yeah. So great pick for the Eagles there. Happy for Bobbert Goblin to get that guy.
Good for Goose.
Yep. And like I said, Eagles had to jump ahead of the Ravens, who are the next pick at 14. And at 14, Ravens still get a stud defender in Kyle Hamilton.
They just sit there and they wait, and then they got a guy that they absolutely are excited to have because they need help in the back end, and they get the best safety in the draft in Kyle Hamilton.
Yep.
I don't love this because that's in our division. I'm not as high on Kyle Hamilton as everybody else. I do think he is the best safety in the draft. I just don't think he is a generational talent like some people were talking about. But this is great for them. Not good for my Browns because now we got to deal with him.
Look, the Ravens always find a way to get good defensive players on that team.
They don't do shit to do it. They just sit there and wait, and it just happens for them.
If there was one place on that team that was really hurting on the defense last year was their secondary, and they had a bunch of injuries. Ravens seem to have had that injury bug situation. But the Ravens going out there and getting Kyle Hamilton, that will absolutely help their secondary. It's a great pickup for them. I do think Kyle Hamilton is the best safety in this draft, and I'm not willing to say he's generational, but he could be. The way that he played, he could be. Two of the more exciting players in this draft to me, at least when you're watching them on film in college, Jordan Davis and Kyle Hamilton going back-to-back there. Awesome picks for those teams.
Yeah.
And then next we have the Texans. So this was part of their trade-back deal. They go out and they get themselves an offensive lineman in Kenyon Green. I feel like it's a bit of a reach to take Kenyon Green here. I didn't think he was the best guard in this class. Zion Johnson is that guy to me by a mile.
But Icky is that guy for me because I'm still calling Icky a guard. But the best true guard is Zion Johnson, not Kenyon Green.
And they decided to go with Kenyon Green. So I guess they could see him working better for their system. But I'm not huge on Kenyon Green. I thought he's a late first or second round guard. But they're giving some protection to their young quarterback there. So that's a positive for that team. Hopefully Kenyon Green can provide them some stability across that offensive line. Again, I think it's a bit of a reach, but if you think that he's going to work better in your system, especially when Zion Johnson is still on the board, all right, then I guess I don't know your team as well as you do. So go get the guy that you want.
Yeah. I mean, they got to build offensive line. So I understand it. Not the way I would have gone, but I'm good with them drafting more offensive line to help build that team up.
Yep. All right, then pick 16. We have the Washington Commanders taking the 5th wide receiver off the board, a guy that I didn't have in my top 5.
This guy was way down for me. I
don't dislike Jahan Dotson, who's the pick there.
I don't dislike him either, but I had at least 2, maybe 3 other guys in front of him in terms of wide receivers.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really good. He was a really good deep threat. Tracks the ball well downfield. It seems weird. Now, maybe this is a hedge of the bet because Terry McLaurin has a chance to move on. Curtis Samuel did not work out for them.
Yeah. I'm thinking that, and Curtis Samuel didn't really work out for them. Injury, I think, played into that a lot. But that's the thing is that Scary Terry, he's going to be looking for some bags coming pretty quick.
Yeah, and he's going to get one if you look at all the money that wide receivers have been given.
Yeah, and if the Commanders are smart, they would do what they need to keep him there. But this allows them the flexibility and some leverage to say, hey, we went out and drafted this guy high. He's going to be a big part of our offense. and it allows them to possibly move on. I don't think Jahan Dotson is going to ever be as good as Scary Terry, but it at least gives them an option. And then if you think about it, they are going to roll out this year with Scary Terry, Curtis Samuels, and Jahan Dotson.
Yeah.
So they do have 3 solid receivers out there for Carson Wentz to throw to when he's not in a wheelchair. So if,
or Baker Mayfield to throw to once, Carson gets hurt.
That's true. So they do have a decent receiving core there. They're a lot of the same type of receivers. They're small guys, quick, and it'll be interesting to see how they utilize that because they don't really have that big receiving threat. Like I said, I like Jahan Dotson. I don't like him at pick 16. I don't like him as the 5th receiver off the board either. So maybe a little bit of a reach, but again, this was a trade down, so they're getting a guy along with additional picks. So you can kind of look at it as a player plus picks at that point, and maybe that makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, that works. All right, so it looks like I got a little more light now. I had to get the light situation fixed in here. It's starting to get dark out here on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks,
all right. So next is pick 17, the Chargers.
Sorry, before we go on to that, we've been talking a lot about Ohio State wide receivers. Curtis Samuel, Scary Terry. I mean, we had 3 guys who were at Ohio State go right in a fucking row with, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Jameson Williams, who started his career at Ohio State before transferring.
True.
Brian Hartline is a fucking stud of a recruiter and a coach. He gets these boys from Ohio State ready to go. I'm pumped.
He's going to get promoted. Someone is going to start moving him up the coaching ladder pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at all the guys that he's put through that program, like it's insane, and it's going to continue to build. And yeah, so congratulations to Brian Hartline for putting out prospects. I mean, and this is great for Ohio State, which makes me happy because when you see this many Ohio State guys get drafted and are still in the league, that tells you, hey, maybe I should go to Ohio State if I'm a really good receiver.
Yeah, and it's because they get good quarterback play there too, at least in college.
Yeah, at least in college.
Yep. All right, so that next pick that we were getting onto, pick 17, Chargers stay pat there, and they get Zion Johnson, the guy who we thought is the best true guard in the class. So I love Zion Johnson. They needed offensive line help. I thought they might need a little bit more tackle help, but Zion Johnson here is a solid pick for them. I don't have anything bad to say about this pick at all. Zion Johnson is a stud. You need to protect your investment in your quarterback. So getting Zion is a great grab for them.
Yeah, they are. This is a really good pick. They are going to continue to help protect Herbert and best guard in the draft. There's nothing to say that is bad about this pick at all. I keep building that team up because this Chargers team is going to be nasty to contend with. This guy starts week 1 for sure.
I mean, who isn't going to be nasty to contend with though out there in the AFC? It's rough.
Yeah, I'm aware. We have to try to make our way through it. I'm going to fix this fucking light real quick.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so you've got a very, very tough AFC out there. It's not a flashy pick, but it's a necessary pick to protect that investment. So there's not a lot to say other than Zion Johnson's a solid pick for them. They, had been talked about possibly taking a wide receiver. I didn't really think that was necessary. Give Herbert more time, a better pocket to throw, and you're going to see more results out of the stud receivers that you already have there. Our next pick, however, interesting, is a trade. So you have the Tennessee Titans trading into this spot. All right. So they traded with the Eagles, and they didn't. There were less.
There's
picks
a lot of
involved.
moving pieces.
This is a trade apparently that had been in the works for a little while. The Eagles trade out of this pick and they receive A.J. Brown from the Titans. And Titans get back 18 and a round 3 pick, number 101. All right. So for the Eagles, A.J. Brown is
Fucking
better than
slam
any
dunk.
receiver that you're going to get there, right? You're going to have to pay the dude. And they did. And it was a reasonable contract.
Yeah, 4 years, $100 million, right?
Yeah, and like 57 guaranteed.
Yeah, that's
A.J.
easy
Brown
to be
has
done
had some he's had some injury issues, but you don't see receivers like you don't see a receiver like him coming out in this draft really. The size, how he's built. And when he came back from injury last year, A.J. Brown fucking lit it up. He's a stud. You're possibly getting more production out of him this year than any other rookie wide receiver in this draft class. If the Eagles can pass him the ball.
Yeah.
But, slam dunk for the Eagles to get A.J. Brown. And the Titans, their receiving options out there are kind of what?
Limited.
Yeah. There was some, war room video, and it did not look like Vrabel was very happy.
I'm sure he was
this trade went
fucking
down.
furious.
And like I said, to trade the guy and have the contract worked out already and have him signed like that quick, this has been in the works for a little bit.
Yeah.
So if Vrabel was pissed when it went down, maybe he was kind of left out of those talks, which doesn't spell good things between the GM and the head coach, especially when you have a fiery head coach like Mike Vrabel. But either way,
Mike Vrabel could have body slammed the fucking GM through a table at that moment.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. But either way, that does move the Titans into pick 18. And to replace A.J. Brown, they go out and they get Traylon Burks from Arkansas.
Who everybody is trying to compare to A.J. Brown, but he's not A.J. Brown.
And Deebo Samuels, he's not.
Yeah, he's not Deebo either. Like, I
like Traylon Burks. I do. I thought he was one of those, again, fringe first-round guys.
Me too.
So, interesting pick here. Obviously, they needed to bring someone in to catch the ball from their quarterback, but who I don't think is long in the tooth to be staying there.
Nope. We're gonna get to that though.
Yeah. So Traylon Burks, I don't expect big things from him. I just don't. In that situation there with the Titans, he's going to be expected to be a number one guy and to produce like A.J. Brown did. It's just not going to happen in my eyes.
Yeah, Traylon Burks kind of worries me. I think this is a guy that we could potentially see bust. Kind of reminds me a little bit of a Laquan Treadwell, who you're very familiar with. Mm-hmm. And he just – I understand he has some good things that he did on tape at Arkansas. But this is not a guy that separates very well. This is they schemed him open a lot. Now maybe he'll work really well in that play action game that they're going to be running with Derrick Henry, but I'm not sure that this is going to work, and Vrabel is going to be very pissed off about this for quite some time.
Yeah, his offense was already a run first offense. Now it's a run only offense. Yeah. So it's going to be tough treading for them going forward, especially in the AFC. They're going to, maybe they need to go trade for Deebo or something like that. I don't know, because they don't really have a whole lot of receiving options there, and I'm not sold on Burks being the guy.
No, me neither.
So next we have the Saints up again. This was a pick that they received in a trade earlier before the draft, and they go out and they get themselves an offensive tackle. They need offensive tackle help. But the guy that they go out and get is Trevor Penning, someone that we've talked about quite a bit here from Northern Iowa. I love the guy's fire. I love the guy's tenacity. You say that he's a walking holding call.
He is a walking holding call.
The thing is that he's being projected to be more of like the left tackle there, possibly. And I don't like him at left tackle at all. I think he's a right tackle.
I hate him at left tackle.
Yeah.
I think he replaces if he goes on the right side, but they got Ramczyk on the right side, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Trevor Penning is not a left tackle. He's a right tackle. He's a big mauling right tackle.
Yeah, so Ramczyk is a phenomenal right tackle, but I don't know if he can play left tackle that well. But you just lose your left tackle, and you bring in Penning to replace him. I don't like Penning as a left tackle. I think that he could be a very good right tackle, but you already got a right tackle. So it's an interesting pick. They're going to have to hope that he can play left tackle well. When we pulled up the video, when we did our joint podcast talking about Trevor Penning, all of his left tackle reps that we were showing, he was getting worked. It was the right tackle reps that he was actually winning those battles.
Yeah.
And I think that just kind of goes to show that he's more of a right tackle. It's an interesting pick for the Saints. If they're able to get it to work with either Ramczyk going to the left side and Penning staying to the right, or somehow get Penning to develop into a left tackle, that's great. I just don't see him developing within the next 2 to 3 years to being a top 15 left tackle in the league.
Yeah, I don't either, man. This is tough. I mean, I hope the kid figures it out. I like seeing those small school guys really come into the league, come into their own, and be successful. His technique just needs so much fucking work, and you're going to toss him into a pretty goddamn good NFC South, where he's going to be facing some pretty goddamn good pass rushers, and you're going to leave him out on an island at left tackle. That is he's going to have a ton of growing pains there.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it is more like a 75% chance that Trevor Penning ends up busting unless they are finding a way to move him to right tackle.
Yeah.
All right. So next pick 20, exciting. We get our first quarterback off the board before the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Woo! I'm super pumped.
And it is Kenny Pickett. So
baby hands himself.
He is staying in Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett, the new quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't expect him to start this year. Like I said, I think that we could see possibly a top 15 year out of Trubisky. I know that's a very bullish on Trubisky, and it kind of makes me a little sick to stomach to say that because I don't think he's that great. But he really could have revitalized his career there with the Bills and learning how to be a little bit of a better quarterback, like how you can throw left. But Kenny Pickett, interesting. I thought the Steelers were going to take a quarterback sometime during this draft. I didn't think it would be the first round. I also thought that it would be 2 other quarterbacks. Like with Malik Willis in there, I assumed that it would be Malik Willis. And then if not him, I thought second round we're going to see Des Ridder go to him because I thought Desmond Ridder is a good fit. But no, they go with Kenny Pickett. So Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, little love triangle there at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It'll be interesting to see how this works out. I'm not super high on Kenny Pickett.
I'm not super high on Kenny Pickett either. And it's not he's not a bad quarterback. In any other year but this year, he is a second, third round quarterback.
Yep.
I mean, he's the only first round quarterback that we have this year, and it's late, starting into the back third of the fucking first round. I cannot believe they went in this direction. Now, this is a guy that played at Pittsburgh in college. I believe he is from the area as well. So this is a hometown kid that is going to play a big factor, I think, in some of the emotion. Maybe you can get some of your Steelers fans behind that. But I think Steelers fans were clamoring for Malik Willis right here. And it didn't happen. I do not think that Kenny is going to play this year unless something really, really bad happens. I hope he doesn't. I hope he has some time to sit back and learn. He could be a productive player in the league. He is not a franchise quarterback. I don't think he is a long-term solution. He's one of those guys, like, I think a really good comp for him, and I think a career that he would be ecstatic to have would be one of Colt McCoy. Like, he's a little bit more athletic than Colt, but
I'm leaning a little bit more towards Blaine Gabbert.
Oof, that's tough.
Yeah, that's generally where I feel like I thought Kenny Pickett could be successful in the right situation. I don't think this is the right situation, personally. Him having to play outdoors with the little baby hands and everything, it's going to be tough. So I think
he's got 2 gloves,
a little bit more.
just like your boy.
Yeah, but Teddy had bigger hands than that.
Yeah, Teddy had way bigger hands than that.
So
like 3/4 of an inch bigger.
Yeah,
everybody was concerned with Teddy's hands, and I think
people were concerned with his knees, rightfully so. As we saw, it was literally talked about. Teddy's knees are too thin, and then what happens? It folds up like a fucking paperclip. So Kenny Pickett going to the Steelers, hopefully for Steelers fans, he turns out and provides you some long-term, quarterback play there. I lean towards thinking that it's not going to happen. But like I said, I think Trubisky will have this year. I think he will have an all right year. And then it'll be Kenny Pickett's time.
If Trubisky plays well this year, I mean, we're talking about him getting re-signed to maybe a longer-term deal, or do they let him play out his last year of his deal and we'll just see what happens with Mitch?
I don't know.
I mean, they got him for 2 years, so that'll be an interesting situation if Mitch does play well this year.
Yeah. All right, moving on to our next pick. This was another trade. So the Chiefs move up with the Patriots, all right? So Chiefs get number 21 overall. Patriots get number 29 overall, a pick in round 3 and a pick in round 4, all right? And they move up and get a guy who I think is going to be great for them in Trent McDuffie. So I was not huge on Trent McDuffie early on in the process, and I have worked myself into really liking him. I know we talk a lot about him being a slot cornerback, and I think that he can play beyond that size of being a slot quarterback. The comps that I kept on hearing were, the cornerback out of Green Bay. I can't think of his name on the top of my head right now. And then Antoine Winfield. And that, again, possibly the smartest player in the draft, according to some scouts, not
That's
just
important.
quarterback.
That is a very, very important thing.
And a team leader. So a good get for them because everyone's going to be trying to pass out there in the AFC West. Going out and get yourself another cornerback is huge. And Trent McDuffie is a very solid cornerback.
Yeah, Kansas City absolutely needed to help begin to fix the back end of their defense. Now, this is a guy that I thought was going to struggle to play outside, but I mean, they need help all over in that defensive backfield. This is a guy that could play, do kind of multiple things, kind of like they had Honey Badger doing. Now, I don't think he'll ever be dropped back into like a safety role, but you could see him kind of line up in some different alignments, maybe, like we saw Tyrann Mathieu doing, especially if he is as smart as everybody is saying he is. Having him line up in different positions, different alignments, he should be able to handle that, and that makes him a bigger weapon and more versatile in an NFL where nickel is basically your base package now. So
yeah. And I feel like the Chiefs, when they moved up originally, I thought, well, they felt like they had to move up for a wide receiver here, which wasn't the case because they need wide receiver help. But I feel like they felt like they had to move up for him because he wasn't going to last past pick 23 and a couple picks to a team that was going to be looking heavily at a cornerback. So good pick by the Chiefs here and a necessary move up, I think, if they wanted to get this guy because I don't think he was going to last much longer. But that takes us on to pick number 22, Green Bay Packers.
Mm-hmm.
And the Packers, did they move up for this one?
No. They did. There was a trade here. What was the trade?
This was part of their compensation, I believe.
This was part of
Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
So again, Green Bay Packers, they need wide receiver help too, and maybe they're gonna go and take the next best wide receiver here. Which there's some options still on the board. None of them that I thought were fantastic, but they go after a linebacker, a Georgia linebacker, one that I did not see making it to the first round. I thought he was a second round guy.
Yeah,
I definitely laughed heartily in native. Heard a couple groans as well from Packers fans that were there. They get Quay Walker, inside linebacker out of Georgia, a position that they didn't really think was a huge need for them. They need defense for sure.
They do need defensive help.
The guy that
Quay is an inside linebacker, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they just re-sign their inside linebacker? I mean, they're still playing a 3-4 though, so I mean they need two of them.
Yeah, I thought that they were fine there. You can get an inside linebacker later in the draft, as we saw in this draft. Some highly touted inside linebackers went later than we were expecting. So to go after Quay Walker here was just a big surprise to me. Fucking love it. go ahead. Don't get Aaron Rodgers weapons. Go after a relatively non-important position on the defense, and get yourself a guy that wasn't expected to go in the first round. The Packers, I feel like, especially since Gutekunst has been there, they take guys way ahead of where they're supposed to defensively. I mean, we saw this last year with cornerback. You're going after guys that are second rounders or later. And I feel like Gutekunst is like, I think this guy's going to be really good, and I'm going to get him, and everyone's going to be surprised that I get him, and people are going to be like really upset that they didn't take him. And it just doesn't tend to work out with those guys.
Yeah, when you want to act like you're the smartest, when you want to prove that you're the smartest guy in the room, a lot of times what ends up happening is you look like the biggest fucking idiot in the room, and Gutekunst continues to fucking do that.
Yeah.
And so we got a comment from Scott Hack. Packers have not taken a wide receiver in the first round for at least 20 years now. It didn't surprise me that they take defensive players in the first round. Yeah, so he's kind of alluding to another pick that we're going to get here to in just a minute.
Yeah, and I thought that they would take a defensive player in the first round, but I thought they would take a wide receiver or an offensive weapon. Yeah, just because like it is what you need on your team.
They don't have any offensive weapons.
Yeah, very little. I mean, they got someone in this draft.
They did. I mean, but it was a wild situation. Aaron Rodgers has got to be fucking kicking himself for coming.
No, I think he's perfectly content. He's a bad teammate. He's bad for the franchise. He's sitting on his.
He's about his money, baby.
$50 million, and he just doesn't care at this point. Didn't seem that heartbroken when his boy Devontae Adams left.
No, I mean, but I think he knew Devontae was leaving because the Packers
Devontae could have stayed if he wasn't gonna.
He didn't ask for $50 million a year.
They could have tried to work something out.
Yeah,
but I think Devontae knew that it was not going to happen because Aaron wants his bags. He's selfish. He's greedy, and we'll see how that works out.
All right. So we're gonna get off of the Packers, and we're
until we get back onto them. But
we're gonna move on to Buffalo. Buffalo goes out. They get Kaiir Elam out of Florida, corner, and I mean this is a really good pick for them. I like Kaiir. He started climbing up those boards a little bit more. Very productive guy in the SEC, and they needed some defensive back help. They've had some issues with Tre'Davious White going down the last couple of years, so this makes perfect sense. And the Bills are really kind of in a situation where they're not hurting for really any position too badly. So they can go best player available right here. And
that's
they get a guy.
To me, cornerback was their biggest need, with offensive guard being next. Mm-hmm. But you can get guards later on in the draft. Go out there and get this guy. Kaiir Elam was, to some, like the third best cornerback in this draft. So I think it's a good pickup for them. He's going to be solid on that team, especially when you're surrounded by, the other defensive backs that you have there. The biggest knock that I heard about Kaiir Elam is that he is very aggressive to the point that he can get himself out of position sometimes, and they'll settle him down. They'll get him working. When he's got that other sort of talent around him, he'll be able to succeed. I love this Bills team is awesome, and this is just going to make their defensive secondary even better. So great pickup by the Bills.
Yeah, I like this pick. Makes total sense to me. So good on them.
And the Bills did move up. They did move up from pick 25 in order to get Kaiir Elam. After McDuffie went, I think they didn't want anyone else to possibly snag up their guy. Next, we have the Dallas Cowboys, and in very unlike Jerry Jones fashion, they didn't take a splashy pick.
They did not.
They went after a guy who some had mocked going, fringe first round. He's still more of a second round guy, but they go out and they get some offensive line help. They're trying to build there through the trenches. They get themselves Tyler Smith out of Tulsa. I think he's a solid tackle.
I had some other guys maybe a little higher. Was it Raymond out of Central Michigan? Mm-hmm. I think I would have had a little bit higher than him, but Tyler Smith's not a bad pick. It makes total sense for the Cowboys to continue to build that line. I mean, their line has been decimated with age and injuries the last couple of years. So
yeah, and realistically, I'm not against Tyler Smith. I just think that the guy that went in the next pick would have been a better option for him. And that's the best offensive lineman in the draft, Tyler Linderbaum.
Yeah. And also this sucks because this is a guy that I've been raving about, and now he is a Raven.
Yep.
Don't love it, but he's an absolute stud. He's going to be a centerpiece of that offensive line for a decade. He is so fucking good. They're going to be able to run right up his ass anytime they want. I mean, I don't know if we talked about it at one point before. There was a video that I saw. I sent it to Graydon because my son plays center, and I was like, look at how this guy gets out and just moves. I mean, shotgun snap, pulls from the center position, gets out, seals an edge, and then peels off and absolutely demolishes a corner. You don't see that kind of movement from interior linemen, and he's a special player. This guy's going to be a stud.
Yep. Now, what's interesting that we haven't really talked about with this is that, like I said, the Ravens actually traded back to get pick 25 here. They originally had pick 23, but the reason why they had pick 23 was because they did a trade earlier in the night with Arizona Cardinals. That was originally the Cardinals pick. And this one is fucking fun for me too because I'm sitting there native across from Mike Aaron's. And he was not happy with this. He's starting to be a little bit of an apologist for Keim, I believe, on this pick. But the Cardinals and the Ravens make a trade. The Ravens receive pick number 123 overall, and they send Marquise Brown and a third-round pick over to the Cardinals.
Yeah, so the Cardinals traded a first-round pick for Marquise Brown and a third-round pick.
Yeah.
There are at least two other receivers on the board at this point in the draft that are better than Marquise Brown. At least two wide receivers. But I think this is to appease Kyler. Hollywood is his boy. They played at Oklahoma together. I do not understand it. This is terrible fucking value for your first-round pick. Yeah. And I don't know where Marquise fits in with this offense.
Yeah, they've already got receivers that are kind of similar in production. You're appeasing Kyler. Lamar Jackson was not happy they lost Marquise Brown. Yeah. But look, they don't have a lot of receiving options there for the Ravens, so getting rid of one of them kind of sucks. But like Marquise Brown was in 3 years, he's not put up over 3,000 yards. You like to kind of have that benchmark of 1,000-yard receivers and stuff like that. He did last year get 1,000 yards, but I'm not high on Marquise Hollywood Brown. I'm not high on him. To trade a first-round pick for him, it just doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
Now, maybe we'll start to see him take another step. Kyler is a better thrower of the ball than Lamar is. Maybe he takes another step forward with Kyler. I did not see the value here at all.
No, I'm not in. I feel like the Cardinals got fleeced here a little bit in order to help appease their quarterback, especially when you see an A.J. Brown get traded for what he got traded for. If you have that sort of option out there, it's a different story. But I kind of felt like they got fleeced in this one. And the Ravens are able to walk away with a stud center because of that trade. Yeah.
I mean, great for them getting Linderbaum. I think that if basically they trade Marquise Brown for Linderbaum, I'm doing that 10 times out of 10.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Now, they need somebody to catch the fucking ball out there besides Mark Andrews, but Marquise Brown is not a top flight wide receiver. I'll be interested to see what they do to, kind of, I mean, I have not seen every Ravens pick to see if they have, kind of tried to supplement that yet. But, I mean, great play for the Ravens, which makes me unhappy because we're going to be competing against the Ravens again.
Yeah. I mean, they'll have a strong offensive line and a good run game. But I can tell you this, the Ravens draft is over. They did not take a wide receiver. They got two tight ends, but they didn't take a wide receiver.
Okay, so they're going to roll out there with fucking 32 packages?
I don't know exactly. I don't know. But a solid offensive lineman for him, and overall, generally good pick. All right, next, pick 26, the Jets. They trade back in. They trade back in the first round.
And this is another great decision by the Jets front office. They trade back into the first round. They get their third guy in the first round, giving them another fifth-year option, and they go out and they get a really good pass rusher in Jermaine Johnson out of Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
This guy was super productive. He started moving up draft boards. People were talking about right up there in that same conversation. I saw him mocked, I want to say, as high as like 8th in this draft.
Yeah, I saw him going to the Falcons at 8. And this is a guy that he was on that Georgia defense, and he left because that Georgia defense was flooded with talent. Yeah. So in order to help his stock, which obviously it did, he goes to Florida State and just continues to be productive there. You know, pride of Eden Prairie, Minnesota, just down the road from where I grew up. Jermaine Johnson looking fly out there, too, in his outfit at draft night. I like that yellow and black that he's wearing. He goes to the Jets, which, you know, Jets making good picks, but it's the Jets, so it always scares me for the guys I like to go there. You know, I know you feel the same way about Garrett Wilson going there. I like Jermaine Johnson, and he's a good pick up there. Another good guy on the line building there through the trenches. So Jets move back in there, get a solid pass rusher. They needed pass rushing help, and they came out with 3 studs in the first round. Their draft overall, especially at the top, very good. They get Ahmad Gardner, Garrett Wilson, and Jermaine Johnson, and then a little hint towards the second round, which I know we haven't gone over yet. You're going to get the running back in Breece Hall, arguably the best running back in the draft.
Gives them 2 guys to work out of that backfield with Michael Carter.
Yeah, it's top heavy for the Jets in this draft, but their first 4 picks are probably close to day 1 starters. Breece Hall is the only question mark as if he's a day 1 starter to me, and I think that he's at least going to be getting a hefty part of the workload. Yeah, a hefty part of the workload. So good draft for them, even if they didn't have a ton of picks and they are more top heavy. But this is a team that needs to be top heavy. They need to get guys out there on the field now.
Yeah, they absolutely do. They need talent all over the place, and they keep stacking it up. It's good on the Jets.
Yep. All right, pick 27, we have the Jaguars. All right, so the Jaguars, they actually traded into this pick with the Buccaneers. Buccaneers get the 33rd overall pick, a 4th-round pick, and a 6th-round pick. And the Jaguars move in there and get arguably the best interior linebacker in the draft, Devin Lloyd. All right. Again, I'll remind you, the Packers took Quay Walker.
Yep. So Devin Lloyd was out there, but they took Quay Walker.
Yeah. If you're going to go for interior linebacker, I figured it would have been a Devin Lloyd, but no, they go with Quay Walker. Anyways, Devin Lloyd goes here to the Jaguars. He's a very solid interior linebacker. Again, positional value-wise, I don't know if he's as big of a need for the Jaguars, but they could use guys all over the field. So
I mean, they lose Miles Jack in the offseason, right? So continue to build, make a better defense. I mean, they're going to have to stop somebody. I don't know how productive they're going to be on offense. Now, they got a lot of weapons. They are going to get one of those weapons back at the end, they have not been able to see play yet. So, I mean, I think it's a good idea. If you're not going to go, more offensive line, build that defense.
Yeah, and so they got Travon Walker and Devin Lloyd here in the first round, helping build up that defense. I kind of would have thought they would have gone for offense if they were moving back in, something to protect Trevor Lawrence, their franchise guy, or a weapon for him possibly. But you got to build the other side of the ball too. So Devin Lloyd is going to be back there as a, kind of field general for him. I saw some comps to like he could be a Darius Leonard style player, which everyone would love to have a Darius Leonard on their team. So if that turns out for him, then, it'll end up being a great pick.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Moving on to the next pick. And I know you're pumped about this. Packers are back on the clock. And, they're going to take a receiver, obviously, because that's what they need. Wait, they don't. They go out, they get more defensive help. They get a DN and Devontae Wyatt from that Georgia defense.
Yep.
I like Devontae Wyatt.
I
He's
do.
a really good player.
If they were going to go defense at pick 22, instead of Quay Walker, I'm going Devontae Wyatt. I think Devontae Wyatt's worth pick 22. I got no problem with them taking Devontae Wyatt other than the fact that they need a wide receiver. Devontae Wyatt's stud, not happy that he's going to be in the NFC North, not happy that he's going to be in the Packers. It's a good pick. But when you go with what your need is, I mean, not that there's great receiving options towards the end of the first round right now, but still, you should have gone Devontae Wyatt at 22 or receiver at 22, and then obviously Devontae Wyatt's here at 28, so they could have taken him there. He's a good player. It's a good pick, just not positionally what they really need. So, I mean, Devontae Wyatt, absolute stud.
Fucking dying.
Mm.
Yeah, good pick. I think this guy. The transition from hot to cold and humid has not been great. Good player. Takes that spot of Zadarius Smith out there. I think they could probably get him to stand up.
You think Devontae Wyatt can be a stand-up guy?
Do you think he's going to play a 5 technique? I mean,
he's 300 pounds, man. That's 6'3", 300 pounds.
I don't know, man. Zadarius is fucking large too. Zadarius is like 280.
Yeah, but that's like fucking nothing but muscle.
I don't know, man. Because if you're drafting this kid to play a 5 technique and a 3-4, I don't know if that makes sense to me.
I mean, positionally, I don't know that he's a great fit unless you're playing him in the interior on a 3-4. But he's a solid player.
He's not a nose tackle though. He's going to have to play outside.
Yeah.
And if you're running a 3-4, you're running a nose and maybe a 3 and a 5 technique. I mean, I could see him line up as a 3. I think he's quick enough. What did he run as 40 in? He was like a fucking 4.6 or something.
Oh yeah,
right?
He was also very fast.
Yeah.
I project him to be more of a 3, or if he packed on a little bit, he could be a nose. I don't see him being a stand-up end for him personally.
I think maybe a 5 technique out there on the edge in that 3-4 alignment. I think if he trims up, I mean, he's got the athleticism to do it. He might be too big though.
Yeah, but either way, he's a good player. The Packers get a good player. As far as their needs, it didn't really completely fit. So, it's the Packers. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I know you're happy about this.
Yeah. All right. So next we got the Patriots from their move back, and they go after an offensive guard in Cole Strange. Cole Strange, the guy that I talked about in our draft process, is a guy that I liked as a little bit more of a sleeper. That's the thing, is that I saw him as
a sleeper.
A second round guy at best, more of a second, third round guy. But the Patriots go out and get this offensive guard. So obviously they saw something in the stranger that they liked. And if Belichick likes a guy, I kind of have to trust in Belichick at this point.
Yeah, who am I to say that it's wrong? Seems like a reach.
It seems like a little bit of a reach. Yeah. So they go out, they get some offensive line help, protect Mac Jones. And, like I said, I like Cole Strange. I do. I think first round's a little early for him. But, you got to trust, I guess, in Belichick because he is great at evaluating talent.
Yeah, he is. So, I mean, all right. I mean, it seems like a reach, but he'll turn out to be a fantastic Patriot.
Probably.
That's what always happens.
Yep. All right, pick 30, we have the Kansas City Chiefs with their second pick in the first round, and they get a defensive end in George Karlaftis. Again, I thought, we could be seeing a receiver here, like Sky Moore or something like that. But Karlaftis, probably a first-round pick, very, very often mocked as a first-round guy. The Greek Freak is going to need some, foraging in the NFL because he hasn't been playing football forever. But you need people to brush the passer out there in the AFC West, and they go out and they get one.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Karlaftis could have gone a little earlier. I also could have saw him falling into the second round. The Chiefs needed a ton of help on defense. I thought this was going to be a receiver. I thought maybe a George Pickens goes here, but I mean, I'm good with Karlaftis. It makes sense for the Chiefs because they do address wide receiver a little later on in the draft. So,
yep. All right, pick 31, we have the Bengals, and they go after safety Daxton Hill from Michigan. Safety was a position of need for them. Daxton Hill, he's been a late riser. Some people have actually talked about him being that fringe first round type of safety. I've got no problem with him. Like I said, some scouts and whatnot thought that he was undervalued. So position of need for the Bengals, and with the Patriots having just taken an offensive lineman there, I guess there's no more offensive lineman available for them. And they did a good job.
They did their due diligence online during free agency.
Yeah. So no problem with Daxton Hill here.
I got no problem with that either, especially with Jesse Bates being on a franchise tag. So.
Yep. All right. Then the last pick here,
your boys,
my Vikings, the pick that they traded down with the Lions for, and they go out and get Lewis Sign out of Georgia. He's part of that crazy Georgia defense. I wasn't huge on him through the draft process, but obviously I've kind of started to do my due diligence on him. This guy's a fucking heat-seeking missile. It gets him into trouble sometimes. He's gotten some penalties called on him. I saw one where he basically knocked himself out on a play. His helmet went flying and shit. But I like the pick. We need help in our defensive backfield. Harrison Smith is not going to be playing forever, so this is an easy replacement for him in the next 2 to 3 years. He also has some versatility. He played the star role, so he would come down a lot, be more of that hybrid linebacker safety, or not necessarily cornerback as much, but he would be playing some of those sets. And the hybrid style 3-4 defense that they've talked about being played in Minnesota makes sense to go out and get a safety like this. And this is a guy that, as they're talking about him and stuff in the draft, people were saying that he was a lot closer to Kyle Hamilton in most scouts' rating process than a lot of people were talking about, that he easily could have been 1B as far as safeties go in this draft, and that he was actually slept on a lot in that Georgia defense. People didn't talk about him as much as they should have. The knocks on him, like I said, he's a heat-seeking missile. He's going to probably get you some penalties for fucking guys up because he plays hard. But he's fast as shit, former soccer player from Haiti. I think he's like one of like 5 Haitian players that will be in the NFL, and the only one to go in the first round. And I like the pick. We need help in that defensive backfield, and he has a lot of position versatility, and it helps us going forward in the future when we do see Harrison Smith depart.
Yeah, so this is a guy we started to talk about a little bit more at the end of kind of our draft process, looking at guys. He is absolutely, like you said, he's a fucking heat-seeking missile. He will fly down, attack the line of scrimmage, and do some goddamn damage. But I mean, that's a good thing. Harrison Smith is more. I think he plays a little bit more center field for you guys now, right?
They mix in previous defenses. They would mix him up. He would play free safety. He'd play strong safety. He'd be down on the line, and he is one of those hard-hitting, attacking safeties. Thing with Harrison, though, is that he is pretty damn good in coverage too, and is known for getting a decent amount of picks every year. Signed has, I believe, 2 picks in his college career, so you're probably not going to be seeing that from him. Maybe it changes in the NFL. So you're not getting that same level of like turnover production. But he, I believe, there was a bunch of stats on him as far as, we're talking Ahmad Gardner style stats where I believe he didn't give up a touchdown. He was only targeted something like 8 times. So he obviously has some good coverage capability.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not being targeted very much, that means that you're probably in a really good position.
And he really showed up in their bowl game as well. So again, I'm happy with this. I was looking defensive backfield at this pick if we weren't going to go for like a Malik Willis or something like that. I thought that was like a lot of Vikings fans were clamoring for Malik Willis, and everything the team has done this offseason has been in that kind of win now type of mindset.
Yeah.
So going after a quarterback here would not have fit with that. So I was looking defensive backfield. I was looking at Lewis Sign, Booth, or my favorite cornerback that was still available at this time, Kyler Gordon. So we ended up, hint later on getting one of those cornerbacks. So I'm happy with this. It was the biggest position of need on our team was defensive backfield. And safety might have not been the exact position, but with his versatility and the way that he's going to fit into our system, I think it's a very good pick. I'm happy with it.
All right, so that takes us through the first round. A couple surprises in there, a couple things that we did not like, a couple surprises in how well teams actually did do.
But quarterbacks for me, man, the surprise
that was my big takeaway. Is that only one quarterbback went in the first round,
and not the guy that we would have expected it to be.
No, it was the last time that happened was it 2012. Was that EJ Manuel was the only quarterback that went in the first round? Same year that what the kid's name? He got drafted by the Jets. Now he's up in Seattle.
Geno Smith.
Geno was in that draft. Geno went top of the second round. So we have not seen drafts like this very often. Quarterbacks always get inflated, go up towards the top. That didn't happen here, and that was very, very surprising to me.
It didn't happen through this entire draft.
No. Teams did not reach on this quarterback class.
Yeah.
So
all
right. You want to go into the second round a little bit and talk about some of the some of those signings, talk about some of the things that finally did happen. I mean, I don't have much to talk about because the fucking Browns traded out of the second round. I was pissed.
Yeah,
because the guy I wanted was on the board, and the team that I'm pretty sure that we traded with is who took exactly who I wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Green Bay Packers, Vikings traded out of that second pick again in division. I wasn't super happy about that, but I was happy with the compensation that we got in return for it. The Packers did move up to that second pick, and they go out and get a wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers and Christian Watson. Being compared somewhat to Jordy Nelson, I think that he's a boomer bust type of guy because he does have electric speed. And he's
tall,
a good receiver, but he was playing at North Dakota State.
Fast. And I think that the Packers are trying to strike lightning in a bottle twice. I mean, they get Devontae Adams from a smaller school. I mean, it's still Division I out of Fresno State. But, I mean, this is another guy, similar kind of build, good speed, deep threat from North Dakota State. And they needed a receiver. Yep. They get one. I just thought they would have done this a little earlier, but I don't know where else they would have gone. I think they were looking for a profile on a specific type of receiver. I would not have taken Christian Watson over Sky Moore, but I mean, it works for them. They get a guy finally.
Yeah, and hopefully this was the guy that Aaron Rodgers wanted, at least for the Packers, because I'm sure that he had some say in it because of all his bitching, griping, complaining about draft picks. Yeah. But the Packers do get their receiver there, and we'll see how he turns out. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of comparisons there to Devontae Adams, and no one is going to expect him to be Devontae Adams, but they're going to expect some production, especially when there's no other receivers there, and he's going to have all the weight of that receiving core on his shoulders. We'll see if he
Rob Tonyan better come back as a fucking just absolute force, or Christian Watson is going to have.
Lazard is still there. But the Christian Watson is going to have to step up to the plate big time.
Yeah, that's a lot to ask for a rookie wide receiver.
Yep.
Going down this, go ahead, man.
That top cornerback that I really wanted the Vikings to go after, Kyler Gordon, he gets taken by the Bears with their first pick, which is in the second round, pick number 39. I love Kyler Gordon. I think that he should have been a first-round cornerback, so good pickup for them. My Vikings did, in that trade back at 42, get Andrew Booth Jr. from Clemson. He was very commonly mocked in the first round. He's considered one of those top 4 or 5 cornerbacks. The only real knock on him is he's had some injury history. So I'm very glad to have gotten him. I think that he's going to be great addition to our defensive backfield, which, again, biggest weakness on the team. First 2 picks, we address the defensive backfield. So I'm all for that.
Yeah. So Browns were at 44. Browns trade out of 44 with the Texans. Texans elect to select a wide receiver. They go ahead and they get John Mechie III out of Alabama. I like the kid. I mean, still not who I would have taken. I would have loved to see the Browns stay pat right here. The wide receiver that I wanted is fucking still on the board. I wanted Sky Moore really bad. But there were other guys that I wanted at this point that were still on the board, and that happened with the very next pick at 45. David Ojabo falls all the way down the 45 after being mocked as a first-round pick, and he goes to the goddamn Ravens. They just, once again, they sit pat, they sit, wait, and a guy who is going to be fantastic for them when he gets healthy falls right into their fucking lap.
Yep. And he's going to sit probably most of the year, but the Ravens are going to have another stud out there for him.
Yeah.
It's a great situation for Ojabo, especially he hasn't been playing football that long and was already producing very big numbers. He's just, sky's going to be the limit for him when he comes back from this injury. We see a bunch of receivers go again here in the second round. Sky Moore, the guy that you wanted, did end up going to the Chiefs, someone that I thought that they could have taken in the first round, but he ends up going at pick 54. So they actually get a decent receiver there in the second round.
Yeah, and this is a guy that they're going to try to use to replace Tyreek. They have a similar skill set. Now, Sky Moore's not as fast as Tyreek, but still really good body control. Most everything well. Separates fantastic. He's so good beating press coverage. That's something that the Browns receivers have fucking struggled with for as long as I can remember, is separating and beating good man coverage. And he's probably one of the best receivers in this draft at doing that. That's who I wanted. So, yeah, Chiefs got an absolute steal there. Steelers went out and got George Pickens, and I thought it was funny that they had Chase Claypool kind of, announce that pick, a guy that is probably going to lose his job to a George Pickens, who is, by all accounts, is incredibly athletic, super special. Questions about, his personality. Is he a good teammate? Also had some injury concerns. Didn't play at all this year until the national championship game. Who else we got in this?
So Trey McBride, first tight end, comes off the board to the Cardinals.
Oh, yep.
It's an interesting pick because I like Trey McBride, but one of the discussions that we were having in our little group chat is what's going on there as far as tight ends. They've got Zach Ertz, they've got Max Williams, now they got Trey McBride. They're not going to have both Max Williams and Zach Ertz going forward for too long because Zach Ertz is getting up there in age and Max Williams is on a short contract. So it's a little bit of an interesting pick, but I do like Trey McBride as a player overall. It's just a weird pick by the Cardinals.
They needed some fucking offensive linemen down there in Arizona, and they just did not address it.
Yeah. We got Troy Anderson, Montana State inside linebacker, going to the Falcons. I really like him. Interesting player, very productive. Was formerly an offensive player, switching over to defense. So he's someone that I'm interested in watching.
Troy Anderson, he was a quarterback, right? And then switched over to linebacker, and then became really productive for them over at Montana State. Going down to pick 31 or 62 overall, James Cook out of Georgia goes to the Bills.
63 overall.
Oh, I'm sorry, 63 overall. I think it's a really good pickup for the Bills. They need to continue to help improve that running back room.
That's the brother of Dalvin Cook, James.
Brother
Cook.
of Dalvin Cook, incredible. I mean, not as electric as Dalvin is, but I mean, good player. I mean, just won a national championship. That should help, take some of that pressure off of Josh Allen up there. Spread the wealth a little bit, get a little bit more running back by committee going, because towards the end of the year they started getting some production out of God damn it, what's the kid's name? Buffalo's running back.
Don't know.
Fuck.
They have a couple Jags up there. They haven't run that a whole lot with.
No, he started having a good year towards the end of the season when it was playoff time in fantasy, and everybody was trying to snatch this kid up as a running back. Devin Singletary. So, but I mean, Singletary is not a workhorse back, so they get another guy there. Anybody else in this first round you want to talk, or second round that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so my Vikings did have another pick in this in the second round, and they take, other than that defensive backfield, you've got guard and center as big needs for the Vikings. So they go out and they get Ed Ingram from LSU, who's guard. He'll probably step in real quick to play right guard for us. And again, he was someone that they're talking about him being a value. I believe one of the analysts wasn't a big fan of him on the ESPN reporting, but everyone else was like super high on Ingram, both rushing and pass blocking. This is an interesting pick, though, for me because we need offensive line help.
He doesn't fit your scheme at all.
I think he'll fit the scheme fine. This isn't a scheme thing for me, though. He has a little bit of history, and the Vikings fans are overall, in general, not happy with the pick once they find out about this. So Ed Ingram got into some legal trouble when he was younger, which came back to mess with him. I don't know if mess with him is necessarily even the right word. In 2018, he was arrested for 2 counts of aggravated sexual assault on minors. When he was 16, he was accused of inappropriately touching the genitals of 2 sisters who were 14. So he was 16, they were 14 or younger, possibly, because the records have been sealed. All the allegations extremely serious, but all the charges were dropped against him. Ed Orgeron suspended him for 2018 and the beginning of 2019 until those charges were dropped. He's had no legal issues since any of that. And again, the court records were sealed. They decided not to pursue charges against him, but he was initially arrested for 2 counts of aggravated sexual assault on minor while he was a minor. So character issue there, possibly. Everyone, I guess, is innocent until proven guilty, but it is a worry. A lot of Vikings fans, especially on the boards and stuff that I'm a part of, were like, how is this guy even technically on their board? And I get that. And so it's a tough pick for me because, like, I think that it's a fantastic pick as far as a player goes at that late in the second round. He was talked about as being maybe, the 3rd or 4th best guard in this class. And I love his film. But those allegations are pretty serious. And, with your Deshaun Watson stuff going on, I understand that you probably feel the same kind of way being torn. The difference is that Deshaun Watson stuff, it's pretty much that happened. And with no charges being pressed against Ed Ingram and the court records being sealed, we just kind of don't know.
And those will never, nobody will ever know. That's never going to get out. I mean, they're talking about minors. That's not something anybody's ever going to, want to get out or allow to get out. And he's a minor at the time as well. Now I don't want to make excuses for anything like that, but as a 16-year-old, that's also not outside of the possibilities of maybe, but it's still assault. Yeah,
it's tough.
I don't want to go after it. Yeah,
I looked into this more because there's news reports and stuff like that, articles that were done on it. It doesn't sound good. Like it's just a very difficult conversation to have because sexual assault is never good, regardless of the age.
No.
The younger you are, the more that you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
But he was 16. At 16, if I'm groping a chick in their vagina, possibly putting fingers in the reports, this is rough to talk about again, reports of him putting his fingers in their vagina, in their anus and stuff like that, that strikes me as an issue. At 16, I knew what that is. And I would know that was wrong, especially if they're several years younger than me. And in those reports, the initial reports, again, none of them are like direct, but things saying that the girls had told him, don't do that. I don't want you to do that. And that he stopped when they said that, but that it had happened on multiple occasions. It's tough. Again, you don't know because this report comes out once he's starting to become an athlete and a star, and maybe people are going after him because they think that they can extort money. I don't know. And the fact that charges never went through on this, it doesn't mean that bad guys can't slip through the system and get away with stuff. I don't know. It's an uncomfortable thing for me. purely football, I'm very happy with the pick. I think that he's a great player, and it's a position of need. Off the field type stuff,
all the other stuff.
I don't know how to feel. I don't know how to feel. I was talking with someone.
I completely understand exactly where you're coming from. We were just having this conversation a couple weeks ago when we got Deshaun Watson and how I felt about it. So
I was talking with someone at work who I won't mention names, but their son had sexual assault charges placed against them that were dropped because a girl sent him nude images when they were both underage, and charges were pressed against his son, and then they got dropped because he's like, the son didn't steal the images, the girl sent it to him type thing. Yeah. It's a tricky situation. And obviously groping versus pictures is a bigger leap. It's a tough situation. I would be remiss if I didn't bring it up as a potential issue with one of my picks. But for what it's worth as well, these NFL teams are going to do their due diligence, especially in today's climate. And I feel like if this new regime, who's trying to build a culture of bringing in good guys and guys that they want to represent the Vikings, if this new regime was willing to go out and draft this guy as high as a second-round pick, they have to feel good about the situation, right, and that he is probably a better character person than that story would lead you to believe. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and get off of that. Third round. My Browns finally got to make a fucking pick. And it was not at all what I expected. We need defensive line help. We need receiver help. But instead of doing that, we go out and we draft a corner. We draft Martin Emerson out of Mississippi State. And this move was kind of done in conjunction with another move. The Browns made a trade, and they have traded Troy Hill back to the Rams. Troy Hill is no longer on the team, so it makes sense why they now need a corner. We drafted corner last year as well. I think it can work with, Greedy, Denzel, and I just forgot the rookies from this year's last name out of Northwestern. Browns corners. Holy shit. Why can I not remember this kid's name? Oh, Greg Newsome. So, Troy Hill, I don't know that we need him. This gives us that depth again by trading Troy Hill away. So I'm good with that. I thought it was interesting, though, because there's a lot of ways that we could have gone. Moving on, a guy that I was really excited to see get drafted, but also, kind of didn't make sense because of where he went to. Chad Mumma, inside linebacker out of Wyoming, goes to the Jags, but they just attacked linebacker earlier in the draft, so seeing them go there again was interesting. And all the reports on Mumma are that this is a great 3-down linebacker. He's really good in coverage, really good at playing the run. So excited for a Wyoming kid to go out and get drafted. Always like seeing that. That's where I graduated. High school was from Wyoming, so I like seeing those guys do well. Then the Browns again get another pick. Finally attack the defensive line. D-end, Alex Wright out of UAB. I thought there were some other guys that we could have gone with here. I don't hate the pick. He's very big, 6'5". Yeah, 6'5".
6'5", 271.
Yeah. I don't know what's happening if we're going to get Jadeveon back or not. We're going to continue to bring in guys, get some depth on that defensive line, hopefully have a decent little rotation here. And this guy's going to be part of that. But we needed a lot of help on the defensive line because right now Miles is the guy, and then we just have a bunch of guys around him, a bunch of Jags. So,
yep. At pick 83, you have Nakobe Dean going to the Eagles again. Probably a good pick by Harry Roseman. And you'll say Nakobe Dean, heard about him in the first round a lot.
Yeah.
Apparently, he's got a pectoral issue, which some
Mhm.
teams were worried about possibly needing surgery. His camp
Well,
says that they don't think that he'll need surgery.
Yeah, he refused the surgery, apparently.
Yeah. And so Nakobe Dean, the Eagles could be getting a first-round talent at linebacker, which,
They drastically
Robert Goblin wanted a Nakobe Dean in the first round. I know a lot of people prior to draft day wanting Nakobe Dean in the first round for their team. So even if he has to sit for a year, in the third round, you're getting possibly a first-round style linebacker. So really good pickup for the Eagles there. And then in addition to that, in this third round, I know you got another pick here.
I do, but it's all right. We got some other guys we definitely need to talk about.
We got – this is where our quarterback run kind of started.
Yep.
All right. So to kind of segue a little bit, and we'll talk about both of our teams here and all of our picks shortly, we'll go over where all these quarterbacks went down. So we already talked about Kenny Pickett going in the first round. All right. Next, the next quarterback off the board, not Malik Willis again. It's Desmond Ridder. And he goes to the Atlanta Falcons in the third round, pick number 10. All right. And I actually like this pick for the Atlanta Falcons.
I do too.
People were saying that Desmond Ridder reminded them of Mariota a lot. And Desmond Ridder is going to a situation where he does not have to start. Mariota's going in there as the starter right away. So having Mariota be the guy where Dez can sit and wait and learn from a guy that has a very similar play style to him, and possibly be going into a much more dynamic offense than what he had at Cincy, which could suit him better, with Cordell Patterson and stuff like that. I like this fit for Des Ridder. And in the third round, perfect time to pick him. So Falcons go out there, get a good guy. It still is a question, why didn't Malik Willis go earlier, especially when we thought that he'd be, if anyone, going first overall, not first overall, but the first quarterback to go would be Malik Willis. Malik Willis is still out there. All right.
Yeah.
And then he ends up going at pick number 22 to the Tennessee Titans. So what does that say for Tannehill?
Tannehill wasn't the answer. I don't think.
Tannehill wasn't the answer. And if one of these quarterbacks is going to play year one, I think it's Malik Willis. You could see him, especially if the Titans start to crumble, especially since they don't have receiving talent and stuff. You might see Malik Willis start to crack that starting lineup, especially towards the end of the year. I don't know if I necessarily like the fit, especially because they don't have receiving options there, but it is fairly interesting to see Malik Willis fall this far.
Yeah, I thought he was definitely going to go in the first round. And when he didn't go in the first round, I was like, okay, so somebody's going to get him top of the second.
Yeah.
And then as it goes down, not going in the second round, I was like, what is going on? No quarterbacks go in the second round. And then we finally see Ridder and Malik come off the board. And, I mean, teams stayed true to their boards. They did not reach, which you do not typically see. I don't
especially a quarterback.
Yeah, especially a quarterback. I don't love the situation that Malik is going into. I do like Ridder's situation a lot better. They need more weapons, but Ridder's not going to play this year. Ridder is going to sit, and Ridder is going to learn behind a veteran. And he knows that Mariota is on a one-year deal. If Ridder comes in, performs well, maybe he sees some playing time at some point later on in the year. And if Mariota does play well, he can just sit the whole year, learn, and then if he's ready next year, they turn the keys over to him and say, all right, this is your team. Let's go see what you got.
Envision this scenario for me. Instead of taking Drake London with that pick for the Falcons, they had taken Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams, Kyle Pitts, maybe Calvin Ridley some point in time here in the future.
Yep.
And Des Ridder. I like that situation for Atlanta a lot, actually.
Yeah. I don't
and with Drake London, I still like Des Ridder going to the Falcons and Cordell Patterson kind of being mixed in there and stuff.
Yep.
I like the way that offense kind of looks. With Drake London, I still think it could be all right. And I like Des Ridder going to that situation. I just think with Jameson Williams, I would have felt a lot better with it.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you –
or Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, or Garrett Wilson or any other receiver.
So I love that the Falcons took Ridder here. I think that they kind of fumbled on that first pick, though.
Yeah, I agree. But this is great for Ridder. This is good for the Falcons as well because this is a third-round pick. You are not committed to Ridder. But now this is a guy who is the second, third best quarterback in this draft. You can wait till your third round, and then you can see what this guy's got after either Mariota fumbles when he comes out, or next year if you want to see if Ritter really has what it takes after waiting a year.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
The Malik thing, Malik could play this year, but I don't know if he will. It's going to depend on how the Titans are doing,
how their season goes, and if Tannehill continues to kind of be an issue there.
Yeah. I mean, Tannehill got this team to the first overall seed and then absolutely had a miserable postseason.
Yeah. So, then also in the third round, another quarterback was Matt Corral to the Panthers. So
yeah.
I mean, I almost see him as being like almost neck and neck with Darnold. Like, Corral definitely gives me some starting time this year too.
Matt Corral is definitely going to play, in my opinion. I actually think he could potentially be the first guy that we see play.
Mm-hmm.
Just because Darnold is not the guy. Everybody knows it. Like, Darnold's there just to, I think, hopefully get paid again. And then maybe he can become a backup somewhere in the league.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we could see Corral probably by week 5 or 6.
Yeah, that's definitely within the realm of possibility. And with Matt Rule, he now has his guy, even if he's only there for a year. But if you want to strike lightning enough to keep your job, you're probably going to play Matt Corral before he's ready. And
out there. Just to see if you got something there.
Yeah, absolutely. So going through the other quarterbacks that were taking this draft, because the draft is now over.
Okay.
We have Bailey Zappi going to the Patriots in round 4. It's just kind of interesting.
So this is a guy that we talked about for quite a while, and Zappi, that we thought he could, have a chance that maybe go out and be a career backup, which is a great career.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me that he went to the Patriots after they just went out and drafted a guy last year. So are they expecting Zappi to just back him up the whole time, or
they already have their backup quarterback too right now, who's basically a coach for him.
Right.
And I mean, look, Zappi put up crazy numbers in college.
Massive numbers.
So he's a good passer, and he's not going to be pressured into playing. They didn't draft this guy to be their starter. He's meant to be the third stringer this year and backup going forward.
Yeah.
It gives him a little bit of upside in case Mac Jones goes down with an injury.
But I mean, Zappi kind of reminds me a little bit of Mac Jones. Not a big live arm, smart with the ball, and it makes sense. They're very similar players, but I thought Zappi was going to go somewhere, with an established veteran.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting the Patriots to take a quarterback, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, they got their guy last year. So.
Yeah. Then Washington goes out in the 5th round and gets Sam Howell out of North Carolina.
Yeah, I'm not sold on Sam Howell at all.
I mean, Sam Howell might see some playing time this year if Carson Wentz goes down and they don't trade for Baker. Mayfield.
Well, you'll have Baker Mayfield and Baker Mayfield light in that fucking quarterback room.
Yep. Then a guy that I really wasn't tracking, Chris Oladokun. I don't know if I said that right.
I'm not sure.
Another quarterback being taken by the Steelers in the 7th round.
Ooh.
South Dakota State quarterback. So they have 4 quarterbacks out there in this room now, and this is easily a practice squad guy.
I just don't understand why you draft him.
Yeah. I think that he's someone that you could probably bring in as a UEFA or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Then my guy that I was really wanting to watch for, Skylar Thompson, ends up going in the 7th round, pick 26 to the Miami Dolphins. So you've got Tua, you got Teddy, and you got Skylar there. Skylar ain't going to crack the top 2.
No. But this is a guy you stash away on your practice squad, maybe turns into something.
Yeah. If he is able to show up in the preseason and look good, he's someone that could definitely be dealt for a pick or 2 or something like that. Maybe like a 5th round pick to a team that needs a backup or something like that. Maybe.
Yeah.
But
and they're not sold on Tua. Teddy is no longer a starter in this league.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is some sort of insurance on the back end. I mean, I don't see this kid growing.
I think
He's a starter in the league, but
I think that he could be a good backup to, fringe starter if you need him to. Like, I wouldn't want this guy to be my franchise quarterback at this point. I think this is a get him, develop him. He gives you an option possibly for later if you need to have him be a backup, but for sure he could be trade bait in future seasons.
He could eventually he could see some starting time at some point. I mean, we see guys like a Heineke who, is not in the league and then gets a chance and then does a pretty goddamn good job for that Commanders team. So,
and I think that his ceiling could be a Heineke ceiling.
Yeah.
All right. And then the last guy to go as far as quarterbacks in the draft, Brock Purdy from Iowa State. Generally a Jag. I think he was expected to go a little bit higher, but all the quarterbacks are expected to go higher in this draft, even with it being a bad quarterback draft. He ends up going to the 49ers. So that's still an interesting situation out there in the 49er land because they got Trey Lance, they got Garoppolo still. Now they got Purdy. So Purdy will end up moving into a backup role whenever that situation sorts itself out, which I think is something that, again, we still have to talk about. Garoppolo is still out there.
Is he done with the surgery? Is that all taken care of? He's working back, getting healthy?
I don't know. But when it comes down to it, I think that's your main competition. You got three quarterbacks that could be movers out here between now and the trade deadline, and that is Baker Mayfield, Garoppolo, and then I still think Kaepernick's an option out there, especially for the Seahawks.
Yeah.
So those are your quarterbacks in this draft. A very weird quarterback draft, especially because some of these names we were expecting to go higher. Of course, they're going to get boosted up because quarterback and draft talk just always brings up, guys getting inflated, but pretty wild that teams actually kind of stuck to their boards.
Yeah, I did not expect it, but I mean, that's a good thing, and it says a lot about this group of quarterbacks. Maybe this group of quarterbacks will, surprise some people. I don't see it.
Yeah, me either.
All right. So going back to that third round, the Browns had one more pick. We had 3 picks in that third round. Third guy, we finally addressed the wide receiver position. We go out, we get David Bell out of Purdue. This is not a guy I was super high on. I was very sad to see Sky Moore just go by the wayside when we could have had him. David Bell, not a burner. Kind of reminds me a little bit of a Jarvis, but I know what Jarvis is. Jarvis is a known commodity, whereas David Bell is not quite that guy yet.
Everything I've seen about Bell is that he's a good route runner. He's quick but not fast, and that he has separation issues.
Sounds a lot like Jarvis Landry to me.
He ran a 4.65, which is fucking rough for a wide receiver that's 6'1", 212. You'd expect to see something better than that. But, he's probably not being brought in there in the third round expected to crack the starting lineup as a top 1-2 receiver.
Now, that is faster than Jarvis ran his 40. Jarvis ran a 40 in like 4.7.
But Jarvis was injured, right?
Yeah, he was banked up.
Yeah.
I saw people making this comparison online because obviously I follow a lot of Browns Twitter. Well, Jerry Rice only ran a 4.6. Okay, well,
how many other receivers are Jerry Rice?
We're talking about a wildly different era.
Yeah,
Jerry Rice was not playing against the same caliber of athletes.
David Bell ain't Jerry Rice reincarnate.
No.
No.
There's a different level of athlete that we see play in today's NFL than we saw play in that NFL. It's like comparing basketball fucking players from Jordan's era and this era. LeBron playing against plumbers like Jordan was would have been a wildly different scenario, I think. Yeah. But, David Bell, we needed to address receiver. We did. I'll be interested to see how he kind of fits in.
Yeah. They said he's an NFL-ready route runner who can make immediate contributions but doesn't have a high ceiling.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a number 3 to me.
Yeah, sounds like a number 3 receiver.
Yep.
If we can get Donovan Peoples-Jones to be elevated by Deshaun Watson, that's our number 2 opposite of I keep forgetting Amari Cooper. Jesus Christ. My brain is not fucking working, man.
Yep. So kind of looking here at the rest of the Browns draft. I actually like some of these players that you took a little bit later. So you got Perry and Winfrey there in the
I
first.
like that pick a lot.
I was expecting him to possibly go in the second.
Yeah, me too.
So that's a good defensive tackle picking for you right there. But you also go out and you get your star place kicker in Cade York.
Listen, I like the fact that we got a kicker because our kicking situation has been terrible. It's been terrible for over a decade. And the kid has made big-time kicks. He's made pressure kicks. So I'm good with fucking Cade York. If he kicked a 56-yarder in college, I mean, he's going to get in an NFL weight room. He's going to get stronger. Just put the ball through the fucking uprights at least an 88% clip, and you're going to be a goddamn king in Cleveland.
Yeah, absolutely. Fifth round, you go and get a running back. You know, you guys already have a wealth of running backs out there.
Yeah.
You get a guy that I really like in Jeremy Ford.
Yeah.
From Cincinnati, who's uber productive there for the Bearcats.
Yeah, so this is a guy that started out his career at Alabama, and there was just a fucking plethora of running backs at Alabama, so he transfers. And, yeah, but I don't understand the move. So we drafted a corner, right? And the subsequent move was that we traded Troy Hill.
Yep.
Well, we have not moved a running back yet, but if this kid's going to make the team, somebody's going to have to be moved. We don't have enough room. D'Ernest had a great showing last year. He is on a very, very cheap deal from his restricted free agent contract. Nick Chubb is not going anywhere. So that leads me to Kareem Hunt. And
I think you talked about Kareem Hunt going to the Bills, right?
There's a possibility that Kareem Hunt could go to the Bills. The Bills would be brilliant to make that trade.
Fuck yeah.
But that's going to, I would demand a second-round pick if that's going to happen. Because you put Kareem Hunt on that Bills team. That's their star running back.
They're already a championship roster. You put Kareem Hunt on there, and I'm fucking banging the table putting some money on sports books.
I'm going to be going right – well, I'm going to be going across the border over into Pennsylvania to place a sports bet because that it's not yet legal here in Ohio. I'm just hoping that happens before NFL season kicks off. So
yeah, but look, Jerome Ford, I really liked him. I obviously did a lot of scouting on Des Ridder at Cincinnati, the draft process because I was trying to find a quarterback that I really liked, and Ford was always jumping off the tape to me when I was watching the Cincinnati games. Ford was always making plays and bailing them out. I really like Ford. I think that he'll be at least a number 2 back in a platoon system in the NFL. So if you guys do move on from Kareem Hunt, I think you got a good one in him. Yeah,
and we still have D'Ernest as well, who can be a third back. D'Ernest can be a second back. D'Ernest could start on a few teams in the NFL. D'Ernest could start for the Bills. But so what about this? Your guy. I'm gonna butcher this kid's name. Isezi Otomiwo.
Isezi Otomiwo from Minnesota. Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about him. He's a big body, 6'5", 282. We need more edge guys that fit with that 3-4 scheme. So big defensive end. He's good with press blockers, but he not super productive. He only had 3 sacks last season. So in the 5th round, this is a flyer development type of guy. We'll see what happens with him. Before that, we actually had a couple other picks. 3rd round, we got Brian Asamoah from Oklahoma, who I actually really like. It's interesting that we take him as an inside back because now we have Eric Kendricks, who's awesome, and we brought in Jordan Hicks this year. Hicks is only on, I believe, a 2-year deal, and he's older. And Eric Kendricks is getting older too. He's 32 or something like that. But I still think that he's one of the best off-ball linebackers in the NFL. Asamoah is a smaller guy. He's 6 foot 226, which is closer to that Eric Kendricks size. He also kind of played that more star position. He's explosive. He's good in coverage. rangy at run defense. The kind of knock on him is that like he's going to rack up a lot of tackles, but sometimes those tackles are going to be 5 yards down the field. Like he can get himself out of position. But I like the fact that he's got very good coverage capability. This is a guy who in the third round is going to be able to contribute in some special packages this year, but going forward, he's going to be a replacement for one of Eric Kendricks or Jordan Hicks, I think. I really like the guy. I think that he could have gone as high as in the second round. So I'm glad that we went out and got him. And then in the fourth round, we get a Caleb Evans, a guy that I didn't know much about before looking into him a little more. He's a bigger cornerback from Missouri, 6'2", 197. He's best in a press or in press zone. Smaller hands. He doesn't make interceptions. He's dropped balls, only one career interception. But we need defensive backs. So this guy is not brought in here to be a starter. He's a development guy. And he could make the team as like our fourth or fifth cornerback as of this point. And hopefully he's able to develop into more of like a third type of guy. One of those more outside cornerbacks, because we've got a couple guys that can play the interior now as like a nickel back. Beyond that,
I mean we did the same. We got a bunch of names here at the end.
No, I will say
Isaiah Thomas. I mean, great basketball player. Don't know shit about him as a football player coming out of Oklahoma as a D end. Dawson Deaton, center, Texas Tech for the Browns.
And he's tall for a center. He's 6'6", 306, which is interesting because normally your centers they're above 6 feet, but they're more towards that 6'2", 6'3" range. Yeah. So this isn't a guy that you're going to want a guy shorter in stature like Baker behind necessarily.
No.
But
I mean, and we already addressed the center position. Yeah. Then we also got a Michael Woods, the second out of Oklahoma, another receiver. That's a practice squad guy. I mean,
yeah. But and then for the Vikings, the rest of their draft. So there is some names I like here. Fifth round, we go out and get a running back, Ty Chandler. Our running back situation is a little bit interesting because we have 3 running backs on the squad right now. Much like, you already have kind of a set lineup of running backs. You got Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison, and Kenny Nwangu. Nwangu is not typically going to be considered like your second running back if Madison moves on after this year because this is the last year in his deal. He is definitely special teamer, a kick returner, punt returner, and he's a good receiver, very fucking fast, but he's not the guy that you want to typically be your second running back. He is definitely a third guy in a rotation, whereas Ty Chandler at 5'11", 204, I really liked a lot of what I saw out of him. He's good through tight spaces. He's got good cut, quality angles, good upside as a receiver. I think that this is a guy that we'll probably end up having to carry 4 running backs on the squad this year, and I see him as being the eventual replacement to Alexander Madison because Madison will be able to go out there and possibly get a starting job for a team, or at least be part of a rotation where he's not going to be sitting behind Dalvin Cook the entire time. I like Ty Chandler a lot. And then we get Vidarian Lowe, an offensive tackle out of Illinois, big dude, 6'5", 314. He's going to be tackle depth for us. Our tackles are kind of set right now in Brian O'Neill and our first round pick last year. But he's probably going to be some guy that we're hoping to be able to develop into a swing tackle, along with Olasemeka Udoh, who played guard last year. But he's not going to have to be our guard this year. Olasemeka Udoh I really like him as a tackle over a guard. And right now I think he's a good option as a swing tackle. But to have that kind of fourth tackle on the offensive line, Vidarian Lowe, big guy, hopefully he can develop into something. You're kind of taking shots when you go, in the 6th round.
Fucking darts at a wall.
Yep. And then one guy, a name that I did recognize in the 6th round, we got a wide receiver, Jalen Naylor out of Michigan State, 5'11", 186. Yep. He's another one of those guys that is quick more than fast, but he's faster than his time speed. Averaged 18.8 yards per catch last year, so that's pretty good. Thing is, he's a smaller receiver at 5'11". That's not like super small. His arms are just short. So his ability to fight off corners and stuff like that is going to be a little more difficult. He's definitely that third receiver type of guy. But on our team, he's going to be our fourth at this point at best. We already actually have 4 quality receivers. So he gives us kind of options moving forward and a little bit of rotation as, obviously not a premier guy, especially not in the 6th round. And then our last pick was a tight end. I know nothing about him, Nick Muse, 6'5", 249 out of South Carolina. He's got upside as a route runner, apparently. He tries to block. Apparently, he's not, super
tries
great,
to block,
but he puts in a lot of effort. The ESPN series says he blocks to the echo of the whistle, but he needs to get stronger at that point of attack.
Okay. All right. Well, that about does it, man. I mean, you got any other guys you want to talk about? I don't have too many more. We covered, some of the big names. Obviously had to hit the quarterbacks, guys that we talked about throughout the draft process.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens as far as undrafted free agent signings. There's always some gems that you can find out there. You'd be surprised how many UDFAs are making it onto squads. Out there at quarterback, you still have Carson Strong from Nevada. I know that he was talked about a lot as a guy that could be drafted. He was still out there. The guy that I really want to be our priority as a UDFA is Donovan West from Arizona State. He's a center, 6'3", 296. Versatile lineman. He's got experience at all 3 interior line positions, and we need a center. We need competition at center. We don't have that competition at center right now. We just have Garrett Bradbury, and we need a fix there. The coaching staff talked up Bradbury a lot, but they didn't take his 5th-year option, which means that they aren't sold on him. We need to bring competition, and I think that a guy like Donovan West, who has that flexibility on the interior line and is primarily a center, he was the 3rd ranked center in the draft, according to ESPN, and he still wasn't taken. Overall rank 121. He's still out there. That's the guy that I really would hope that we go out and get just as a flyer UDFA. And if we can develop it into an average center, we got ourselves a line there in Minnesota, and I'm happy about that.
Having a really fantastic offensive line makes you feel so much better about your team.
Yeah. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where some of these names go. We got a Justin Ross out of Clemson. I thought that he was going to get drafted. He's a big guy, 6'4", 205, wide receiver, a big red zone target. That's, like I said, you'd be surprised how many UDFAs end up making squads. So still some names out there for people to go after.
Yeah, the NFL never sleeps, man. It's constantly going on, even when they're not playing games. So, But all right, man. I got nothing else. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna get these kids, wrangled up. Probably try to either put something in my belly and then go to sleep, or just go to sleep because it's starting to get late. These kids are probably tired as shit.
Yeah, I need a nap. I need food, and I need to do some of this college stuff.
Yeah, I got to do fucking laundry. I have not done laundry since I left, so I'm down to the last of the clothes that I fucking have.
Yeah, you're running out of thongs at this point.
Correct. Well, mostly I never wear underwear, so that's not typically an issue. However, my wife did just get here, so the thongs have come back out.
Awesome. All right. Well, that kind of wraps up our draft recap. I'm sure we're going to have more stuff in the weeks going forward and getting ready for, some camps, some more off-season training for these guys.
Yeah.
And moving on.
There's going to be some trades coming up soon, too.
Oh, yeah. There's got to be some more trades happening.
But, all right, man. Let's get the fuck out of here. Guys, thank you very much. This is the Lineman Lounge. You guys can check us out anywhere the podcasts are heard. You can also go on the socials, Facebook. We got the group. There's a page, the Twitter at Lineman Lounge, TikTok, Instagram. We got anything else? We still have the email if you guys want to send in some questions. That's linemanlounge@gmail.com. So, guys, hit us up, send us your questions, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yep. See ya.
Welcome to the Lineman Lounge, hosted by Mike and Evo, calling their shots and being outlandish.
Breaking news from the Lineman Lounge. My fantasy football team just took a huge fucking hit. And that also makes it even more likely that the Raiders are going to beat the Ravens on Monday night. Le'Veon Bell is about to be your starter. Latavius Murray is going to go there as well. Jesus, fuck my ass.
Get ready for the thickest podcast in the game. Coming to you from Hangar 6, where sleeves are optional.